Yes Win. Written by
嘟嘟雪球
Chapter 81. In 8 years, Lin He grew up, and hatred almost ran through his short life. He wanted revenge, but such a passionate emotion was actually illogical, because he had no idea whether his so-called revenge had any meaning. It is an obsession, a knot in the heart, but it cannot be considered a rational judgment. And that is why, when the fate of his enemy was truly in his own hands, he actually hesitated. Lin He stared at the man kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy. His calf had been completely shattered by the bullet, so it was difficult for him to even maintain the kneeling position. Is this the punishment? He is really miserable and pitiful. It was so pitiful that the tragic condition of my mother in my memory is even a little blurry. This man, like his brother, just wanted to join the mercenary group's operations and exchange his life for some extra money. What did he do wrong? But he was going to die. Even if he didn't kill him, he would not be able to survive in the jungle with his current injuries. Maybe I shouldn't seek revenge on him, because he is the creator of suffering, but not the source of suffering. Is he his real enemy? Or is it this world? When he was confused, he subconsciously looked at Chen Chen, who was standing beside him, wanting to get an answer from him. But the other person had already turned his head away and didn't look at him. The same was true for others. Their actions were uniform and expressed one meaning without any disguise. This is your own business, and you can only decide for yourself. Lenny couldn't help but sigh, and his fingers loosened a little. But then he clenched it again. For 2 minutes, he stood there quietly looking at the man without making any sound. Can't decide? A voice suddenly came to his ears. When he raised his head, Chen Chen's face appeared in front of him. Yeah, I decided not to. Bah! The short explosion of the 416 Hong Kong dollars interrupted his unfinished words. Lenny looked at Chen Chen in astonishment, with a look of relief flashing across his face. But then, he realized that the shot only hit the ground. That man is still alive. Now, can you decide? Chen Chen continued to ask. Lenny did not speak. What answered Chen Chen was another sharp and hoarse gunshot from the Type 56 rifle. The man fell on his back to the ground, and this time, he was really dead. The back of his head collapsed and blood slowly flowed out into the still-burning campfire, making a sizzling sound and emitting a sickening burnt smell. Chen Chen patted Lin He's shoulder with an approving look on his face. Have you figured it out? I figured it out, Lin He answered firmly. At that moment, just now, the sound of the gunshot from the man's hand finally shattered his obsession of many years. Then, in a flash, he pieced those fragments of obsession together into a truly logical judgment. They are all fake. He continued. The misery is fake, the pity is fake. He killed my parents, that's the truth. It's not that he didn't think about the consequences, he just didn't care. Even if he left us a pig leg at that time, my parents would not die. How could he not have thought about killing someone? He thought about it too much. He wanted to kill someone in the most innocent way possible. So why should I listen to what he said? Why should I wonder why? It's all fake. His parents are alive, and he has a son and a daughter. This is real. My whole family died, and that's true too. That's good to know. Chen Chen took the gun from his hand, removed the magazine, ejected the last bullet from the chamber, and then threw the gun directly into the fire. The real meanness is not to do evil, but to cover up the evil nature with suffering. The wooden buttstock and handguard quickly caught fire. Chen Chen continued. If you can't figure it out today, then our fate ends here. But now that you have figured it out, why not just follow us? If you agree, go downstairs and pick up a gun. If you don't agree, leave now and pretend you have never been here. Lin He had almost no hesitation. Without waiting for Chen Chen to continue, he ran into the battlefield, searched for a few minutes with his brother's low-light flashlight, and then returned to the campfire, holding a Type 81 rifle in good condition. There's a lot of equipment down there. Shouldn't we go search it? He asked curiously. We need to search. You have 5 minutes. Find yourself a night vision goggles and a bulletproof vest. You know night vision goggles? They are worn on the head and are similar to the ones we have. There were night vision goggles among this batch of scouts, and Chen Chen shot down one himself. But the number was indeed small, and not as much as what his side was using now, so he was too lazy to collect them. After all, now is not the time to clean up the battlefield and divide the spoils. However, since Lin He has decided to join, the situation is different. We have to get him some equipment, otherwise if he dies, wouldn't it be a big loss? Hearing Chen Chen's words, Lin He followed the others back to the battlefield again. This time he was very fast. In less than 2 minutes, when Chen Chen was still checking Jia Luoer's damaged radio, he came over with the equipment designated by Chen Chen. It seems that he had already made good observations when he touched the corpse for the first time. Damn it, what is a genius? This kind of quality that comes from struggling on the line between life and death is the greatest talent. Chen Chen reached out and adjusted the loose bulletproof vest on Lin He and smiled with satisfaction. But when he saw the PNV 57 night vision goggles in the other person's hand, the smile froze on his face again. What is this hanging thing? This thing is so famous. It is called a Soviet-made cervical spine exerciser. The total weight of the eyepiece and the battery box is more than 3 kilograms. It is usually used by vehicle drivers, and the method of use is usually to find a rope to hang it on the top of the warehouse. No kidding, it is really hanging. In fact, the imaging effect of this night vision goggles is not good, and the edge distortion is extremely serious. It takes a rare talent to not feel dizzy after wearing it. Really, I don't know where Galaro's quartermaster got this thing from. It would be better to just leave the pulsar at home. He sighed and asked, is there nothing better? No, I saw two, both were the same, and one had a big light on its head. It looked like a mining lamp. It is the active infrared night vision device that I saw before. What kind of mercenary group is Ga Yaozi? An old item recycling group, right? Forget it, just use it for what it is. You don't need to wear it when you're on the road. Oh cool. Lenny's answer was brief, and Chen Chen said no more. After simply cleaning up the traces and replenishing the ammunition and throwing materials in the supplies reserve in the camp, he expanded the escort team to 6 people and set off again. After nearly 5 hours of rest, everyone's strength had recovered. Although it has not reached the 100% state at the beginning, it can at least reach 60%. More importantly, after a big victory, everyone's mental state improved a lot. Everyone, including Ga Yaozi, was in the mood to say a few words in chat. This is a good phenomenon. It will be really dangerous when everyone dares not or cannot speak. Number 4, this radio is completely broken. We can't receive their signal. Bao Qi said as he was holding the radio brought back by Chen Chen and trying to monitor the enemy's movements. It doesn't matter. In fact, it may not be useful even if it's not broken. They're either frequency hopping or performing burst communication. I'm just trying my luck. Just throw it away. After that, Chen Chen turned to Lin He and asked, so you were sure it's a boy? Your brother said before that you are his sister. Really? He might be trying to deceive you. In fact, I think you wouldn't kill him if he didn't deceive you. That's right. Chen Chen subconsciously wanted to skip this topic, but Lin He continued. Captain, should I call you Captain? Just call you Captain. We'll be friends from now on. I don't blame you for what happened to my brother. You helped me kill my enemy. No matter how big the grudge we have, I still owe you. I will repay you in the future. Wait a moment. Chen Chen interrupted Lin He and said seriously, remember, I was the one who killed that person, not you. On the other side, it is still in the Vientiane Hotel. After listening to the latest situation reported by his subordinates, Chen Chen was so surprised that he put down his wine glass and asked subconsciously, is Ga Yaozi also finished? The adjutant nodded slightly, looked around hesitantly, and Chen Chen waved his hand and said, Boss Peng and Mr. Jackal are both our own people. It doesn't matter. Just tell me directly. After getting Chen Min's permission, the adjutant continued, Galora was seriously injured. All of their scouts were killed, and none of them survived. It was the wounded soldiers they left behind who slowly caught up with them and found that everyone was dead. They then used the backup radio to contact the main force behind them, and the main force then sent the news back. The scouts of Ga Yaozi actually numbered 22 in total, and then they temporarily recruited some people from Wanakang and Cantu village to form a tracking team, with a total of 42 people. Before we even saw the Dongfeng Corps, 10 of them were killed or injured by the trap, 3 of them died, 4 were seriously injured, and the rest were slightly injured. These people were saved because they were left behind. The remaining 32 people continued to chase forward, but were ambushed by the Dongfeng Corps at the back of the sunny slope of Wanhamanshan Mountain. All of them died. All dead. How is that possible? This time, the person who spoke was not Chen Min, but Peng Shuqing. 32 people in the jungle. How could they all be killed? If they killed a few people, the mob of Jello would start to run away. How could they be killed all of them? This is actually the common idea of several people here. In fact, no one would be surprised if it was said that the Dongfeng Corps repelled and dispersed Ga Yaozi's men. Because they are really strong and they have a tactical master in the ship, it is not difficult for them to launch a jungle ambush. However, winning a fight is different from being killed. The difficulty of an annihilation war is several times higher than that of an ordinary victory. With only 4 people, how can they surround 32 people? Were the people of Ga Yaozi killed or captured after they surrendered? Chen Min thought for a moment and then asked. No, he was beaten to death. No one is left alive. We don't know exactly how the fight took place, but the Lion Corps has already rushed over. Based on the situation at the scene, they determined that the Dongfeng Corps dealt a quick death blow. At least one sharpshooter caused heavy casualties after the ambush began. Then Jelloa's men tried to hide, but the Dongfeng Corps had laid mines behind the bunkers in advance, killing several people. It was confirmed that they could not win the battle, and Ga Yaozi did retreat, but the people from the Dongfeng Corps killed all the remaining people with the alternating covering fire. Of course, this is just a guess based on the location of the bodies, but no matter what, this Dongfeng Corps is indeed extremely strong. They had great firepower and clever tactics. They threw 9 smoke bombs alone. This was exactly the same as when they set up checkpoints on the outskirts of the city. The most important thing is that there was a guy who was a very good shooter and caused most of the casualties. Shipwreck. The Jackal said slowly, and the others nodded in unison. I kinda know how he fights. Chen Min tapped the table thoughtfully and then speculated. Standard 4-4 tactics, 1 machine gunner for support, 1 demolition man for cover, 1 main shooter and 1 secondary shooter. Keep the firepower continuous, suppress the people of Jalal, and create opportunities for the main shooter. Plus they have night vision goggles and body armor, Mr. Jackal. Can you get us some of that as well? The bulletproof vest is still okay, but the night vision goggles probably depend on whether the company has a sales plan for the next stage. You know, the night vision goggles in Xinchuan's hand are temporarily lent to him by us, not for sale. Clear. Chen Min sighed and continued. Although this fight with Joa is a little unbelievable, if you think about it carefully, it is still normal. The combat power of Ga Yaozi is the weakest among the 3 mercenary groups. They just have more people, let alone the Dongfeng Corps with the sunken ship. Even if I pull a group of my private soldiers out, they can still defeat them. But the Lion Corps is different. They are not opponents on the same level at all. I hope they can make it this time. To be honest, if they can really complete the task, it will be a great thing for you, Muguwe, and us. Hearing this, the 3 of them smiled at each other. Only Chen Chen, who was sitting in the corner, had a barely perceptible glimmer in his eyes. At the same time, near camp number 2, Hu Kaicheng, the chief commander of the Lion Corps, or the company commander as they called him internally, was squatting beside the still burning campfire, while 6 members of the team were spread out in a V-shaped ambush formation, on guard. After a moment, he said solemnly, our opponents are very strong. Whether it's jungle anti-tracking technology or frontal combat capabilities, they are not inferior to us at all. What's more troublesome is that they are in good physical condition and have not yet suffered from physical exhaustion. Look at the traces around us. Judging from the footprints and fallen vegetation, they took a short rest before ambushing Ga Yaozi. And during the break, they arranged a one-person, one-post rotation strategy, with the sentry post located at the top of the slope. This shows that their commander is very confident in the condition of his team members, even confident enough that he can rest assured. Here, this is the resting spot. The vegetation has obviously been crushed. Look here. This person even made a pillow with nearby soft branches before resting. He is so calm, really. Ga Yaozi shook his head. The adjutant beside him squatted down to check the details of the leaves and veins of the overturned vegetation, and then added, "They have been gone for at least 3 hours, but the fire is still burning vigorously, which means they deliberately added firewood to disrupt our judgment. Don't disturb the campfire. Be careful of booby traps." From this point of view, their commander is definitely a man of great strategic skills and combat experience, and his actual combat experience is comparable to ours. It's really hard to handle. I'm afraid a small group pursuit won't work. Hearing the adjutant's words, Ga Yaozi nodded immediately. I thought so too. If 1 or 2 groups of people follow them, they will probably just be delivering food to them. It's better not to chase them too closely. According to the backup plan, we should switch to surrounding them in the mountains and chase the rabbits. We have basically grasped their movement trajectory. According to their current direction of movement, they should only be able to enter Mengbin from Wantanjian Pass through Naong Village. If they were to turn south midway, the overall consumption of energy would be too great, which would not be in line with their strategy. In that case, Ga Yaozi paused for a moment, then turned on a high-power walkie-talkie and began giving orders to multiple teams scattered throughout the jungle. Groups 1 and 2 continue to pursue southwest, mark point 21.408 north latitude, 99.03 east longitude. Group 3, Group 4, Group 5 turn south, reach position 21.389, 99.098, and then turn west. Group 6 continue south to Tangi Highway, search the mountains westward along the highway, and reach Mengbin as soon as possible to reunite with the interception team. Group 7 advance along the northwest ridge, occupy the commanding heights, and observe the fire and smoke. Groups 8, 9, and 10 exit the jungle and quickly head to the vicinity of Naong Village and wait for orders. The remaining personnel will continue the pursuit with me and be on standby. Complex orders were issued, and all teams of the Lion Corps began to mobilize. A huge net was woven in an instant, and the Dongfeng Corps was already wrapped in it. After a little thought, Ga Yaozi added, "Everyone start taking the medicine and maintain maximum speed. Remember, you must ensure that you have sufficient firepower to conduct reconnaissance forward at a sufficient distance. Don't let them ambush you. Also, the search method is strictly based on the double group word. Don't overestimate yourself. Our opponents are very strong. This kind of fruit is called snake fruit. There are a lot of them in the mountains. Some people say they are poisonous, but they are actually edible, just not sweet. But you still have to wash it first because it grows on the ground and some animals will chew on it, which makes it dirty. These are feathers from dumb pheasants. This kind of pheasant is very expensive. You can catch it with a net, but it is worthless if you kill it. Be careful where you step. There are many tree holes on this land. They are formed when tree roots rot. It is easy to sprain your ankle if you step in them." The 6 people walked through the jungle. Lin was particularly strong. He could even explain to others while walking. Under his leadership, the group of 6 moved much faster. He could always find the best route in the complex jungle. Many times, even though there were bushes so dense that no light could penetrate them, he would choose the most labor-saving way to cross without hesitation. The most exaggerated thing is that at first glance, his route seems nothing special, but if you deviate from his pace by even 1 step, the difficulty will suddenly increase. The branches and leaves became tougher, the thorns became denser, and even the footholds on the ground became more rugged. The jungle that looked almost the same to everyone else was completely different in his eyes. In fact, there are many paths in the jungle. Not all paths exposed on the ground are called paths. The paths exposed on the ground are basically animal paths. If you walk on them, you will be discovered by prey. In some places it may seem like there is no way out, but in fact it is just blocked by large leaves. You can just push them aside and walk through. On the contrary, those places that don't look dense from above usually have a lot of vines and thorns growing on them. Hearing Lin He's words, Chen Chen nodded secretly. This is not some metaphysics, but the accumulation of serious experience. Just as Lin He said, the places covered with broadleaf plants are completely blocked from light, and rain and light are relatively scarce in the lower parts of the ground, and there are fewer low shrubs and vines, so it is much easier to get through. And if an area is not dominated by broadleaf plants, it will definitely be filled by small-leaved shrubs. It is completely scientific and can be fully utilized. We have really found a treasure. With such a person around, the jungle combat capability of the Dongfeng Corps can be conservatively estimated to increase by more than 20%. After leaving Camp 2, the 6 people walked for a full 5 hours, but the physical exertion they consumed was less than the previous 4 hours of walking. Even Jia held on and did not need to take drugs anymore. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, 26 hours had passed since the Dongfeng Corps set out, and their total rest time was no more than 6 hours. They had once again reached the critical point of their physical strength. So Chen Chen ordered his men to rest at camp number 3 by the river and wait until daybreak before setting off again. The double-layer heat-reflecting fence used for making fires had been built before, all made of yellow mud and covered with vegetation. It came in handy at this time and could evade the thermal imaging search of the Lion Corps to a certain extent. Of course, if it was observed from the air, there would be no way. But Chen Chen didn't believe that they had a helicopter. If they did, he would definitely send Jia to them and kill her without hesitation, and then join the Lion Legion's camp. After all, having a helicopter means that they are the strongest force near Munka. Flames rose, and white mist rose from the clothes of the people sitting around the campfire that were wet with dew. Chen Chen unfolded the map and re-examined the escort plan based on the positioning that had been made long ago and the current status of the team. We are now only 26 kilometers away from Wantanjian Pass, which is about 4 hours faster than our original plan. Overall, it is going quite smoothly. However, we consumed too much energy in the first half of the journey, and the rest time we need will become longer and longer later. We estimate that it will take at least 50 hours to complete these 26 kilometers. That means we still have to go for 2 more days. After reaching Wantanjian Pass, we still need to head south and walk 2 kilometers to Nayong Village. This section of the road is the most dangerous, but as long as we can enter Nayong Village, there is basically nothing to worry about. That is the territory controlled by the Southern Shan State Army's 756th Brigade. Chai Zili has already made arrangements. As long as we go in, we will be safe. So the biggest problem now is the Lion Army. They haven't shown up yet, and it feels really bad. I suspect that after learning about our battle with Ga Yaozi, they decided to divide their forces and surround us, intending to control our range of movement, and then attack us from a favorable position. That is to say, in the worst-case scenario, they have already guessed our route. The question now becomes whether or not we should continue along the original route. If we continue to move forward, we may face a tough battle at Wantanjian Pass. If we change our route, our movement will be further prolonged, and even Garoj's large force may be able to catch up with us. Vote. Keep going, or change the route and try your luck. Hearing his words, Shidakai and Baoqi, who were sitting beside the campfire, fell silent. This is indeed not an easy decision to make. After thinking for a long time, Shidakai finally said, I think we should continue. Changing the route is just a matter of luck and is too much of a gamble. Hearing his words, Baoqi nodded and agreed. I also think we should keep going. Although the Lion Army may guess our route and set up an ambush at Wantanjian Pass, at least we can still make a prediction. If we change our route to the south, we might run into their encirclement team, and we are not prepared, then we will be in trouble. Whether we can defeat the Lion Army in a skirmish is a real question. Clear. Chen Chen nodded slightly. He actually knew what the two were worried about. To put it simply, there were too few people. There are only 4 people in the Dongfeng Corps, and with Lin, who has no combat experience, there are only 5 people. If even one of these 5 people dies, it will be a major loss and will lead to a significant decrease in the success rate of the operation. On the other hand, the Lion Corps has a large number of people and a higher tolerance for mistakes. The chances of the Dongfeng Corps making mistakes are pitifully small compared to them. Therefore, unprepared battles should be avoided as much as possible. Even if you know there might be an ambush at Wantanjian Pass, it is better to rush there after careful planning than to take an unfamiliar route and try your luck. This is not so much a kind of caution as it is an extreme self-confidence, because these two people really believe that under the leadership of Chen Chen, as long as the battle is prepared, there is no reason why they cannot win. But of course, Chen Chen still hopes that the final battle will not happen. If possible, he would choose to quickly break through the enemy's defense line and then rush to the protection of the 756th Brigade regardless of everything. Then it will be 3-1. Li Bang doesn't need to surrender. Just keep going the same way. Chen Chen spoke. Understood. Let's continue along the same path. The plan was set, and Chen Chen glanced at his watch and allocated 6 hours of rest time for the team. Their current situation was certainly not absolutely safe, but they needed rest, and the enemy certainly needed it too. The lead time has not been shortened. That's enough. Many people think that once the battle begins, it will be a sleepless fight to the death, but in fact, this view cannot be said to be wrong. At least it is inaccurate. Even the record of a 120-kilometer day and night force march, which has not been surpassed in human warfare history, was based on 2 camping rest stops. After all, there is no limit to human will, but the body cannot sustain it. Therefore, 6 hours of relaxation time was a luxury for the 6-member group still on the run. But of course, it was absolutely necessary. As usual, Chen Chen quickly slept for 3 hours, then took over the shift and began his own 1.5-hour sentry duty. The terrain here is even simpler than Camp 2. It is separated by nearly vertical cliffs a few hundred meters on both sides, and there is a waterfall behind them. The only thing they need to be wary of is the direction of the river beach where they came from. The view on the river beach is not wide, so it does not take too much energy to observe. While eating the energy bar porridge that Bao Qi had prepared for him in advance, he looked at the moon gradually setting in the west, and suddenly an indescribable feeling surged in his heart. The moon is brighter in his hometown. Although he no longer has a hometown, looking at the mountains and the moon always gives him an illusion that he just fainted during a training session and had a very long dream. However, the 416 Hong Kong dollars in his hand kept reminding him how real this experience of just 3 months was. Chen Chen sighed, took off his night vision goggles, and wanted to rest his eyes. But at this moment, a figure came up from behind and sat next to him. Jia. The latter said nothing. Chen Chen frowned slightly and said, if you don't continue to rest, I will continue to give you drugs for the rest of the journey. Hearing his words, Jia showed a complicated smile on her face. After a moment, she replied, it doesn't matter. This is my last madness anyway. I'm gonna die, aren't I? Chen Chen did not hesitate at all, but immediately retorted, no, you will survive. Thailand needs you to survive. This was of course a lie, but now he did not want to use some sincere truth to erase Jia's desire to survive and bring unnecessary trouble to the subsequent tasks. Looking at his determined expression, Jia shook her head. You are either too stupid to have any sense, or or you were lying to me. But you were a smart person. Since you have accepted the mission, you will not do anything stupid. So, you were lying to me. But actually, this is unnecessary. When I set out, I had already anticipated my ending. The reason I'm willing to continue the mission with you is, of course, because I want to stay alive. This may be different from what you think. You may think that I will die when I arrive in Mengbin, but in fact, only when I arrive in Mengbin will I have a chance to survive. I don't want to know that. Chen Chen interrupted Jia and continued. My mission is just to get you to Mengbin. As for what happens next, it has nothing to do with me. I just hope you can cooperate with me as much as possible so that I can complete the task smoothly. The indifferent Shura. Jia pursed her lips, and after a few seconds of silence, she suddenly blurted out, Don't you want to F me? Chen Chen gripped the gun vigilantly, and for a moment he was confused about what this woman was trying to do. I mean, I'm not ugly, and from your perspective, I'm a dying man. Then it's normal to take advantage of the goods before they are delivered, right? For people here, conquering a white woman is always a special experience. After a pause, she suddenly said in a charming manner, You can do it now if you want. Even in front of them, or with them. Chen Chen shook his head and said calmly, Don't push me. Believe me, if you have any thought of escaping, even just a thought, I will not hesitate to make you lose the ability to move freely. Now, you'd better prove to me that you don't have such thoughts. But I'm just afraid that my plan will fail, and that the last thing I'll remember about sex before I die is that dungeon. You don't need to think too much about it. Besides, you're a really good candidate. You saved me twice. Who doesn't like a hero? Jia sighed. But, as I said, I can only survive if I can reach Mengbin safely. If that doesn't prove it, I can tell you my plan. Explain. Chen Chen replied briefly. At first he didn't want to listen because he didn't want to get into trouble. But after Jia started to behave strangely, he had to listen in order to eliminate the risk. Hua State is about to sign a ceasefire with Myanmar. The SSAS also wants to cease fire with Myanmar, but the whole family of the 756th Brigade wants to continue fighting. Only by fighting can they make money. They were willing to hand me over to the Thai side because they were following the orders of the SSAS. But what if I can give them a chance and let the SSAS and Myanmar continue to fight? Chen Chen's brows tightened. What Jia said was indeed true. Even without relying on her own experience in her past life, she could actually roughly see this trend. But the question is, what does this have to do with Thailand? Wait, it really has nothing to do with Thailand, but it has something to do with Dakali. That batch of equipment is now in Dakali. What on earth did you see? What on earth do you have in your hands? Chen Chen asked in a low voice. It's a secret. In short, it is a secret that can be used by the He family to push the Burmese army to continue fighting the SSAS. Compared to the Thai royal family dispute, it is nothing. But for the He family, what they can get in exchange for this secret is definitely much more than handing me over to the Thai East directly. They can take the risk. At least, they are willing to delay it a little bit so that I can live a little longer. Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief. I understand. Ban opium. Replace it with ecstasy. The equipment was exchanged for marijuana by the 505th Brigade in Dakali. Jia looked at Chen Chen in horror, her voice almost out of control. How do you know? How would I know? I knew it a long time ago. I just didn't think of it for the moment. In fact, the anti-drug situation in Shan State is very delicate. The further north you go, the better the work is done, and the further south you go, the more superficial it becomes. The most ironic of these is the 505th Brigade. On the surface, they are frantically eradicating opium poppies in the territory, but if there is even one, they will immediately send people to burn it. But at the same time, they started the marijuana business themselves and became Breaking Bad. Of course, this matter was still a secret at that point in 2009, and it was something that absolutely could not be exposed. One of the ceasefire conditions between Myanmar and Shan State is to completely ban drugs. If they knew that the 505th Brigade was in the chemical business, there would be no point in talking about it. Jia really grasped the key point. As the jackal said, she was smart and did her best to keep herself alive. It was really too troublesome, and there were too many forces involved in this matter. But fortunately, it had nothing to do with me. I'm only responsible for sending you to Mengbin. Don't try to recruit me into your group. I thought you would be interested. After all, you're a mercenary. There is a chance only if there is chaos. But since you don't want to forget it, Jia shrugged and continued, I can do it myself. Don't worry, I will cooperate with you 100%. After that, she stood up and left, walking to lie down by the campfire. Chen Chen shook his head and raised the telescope. The sky was gradually getting brighter, and in the early morning light, at the end of the telescope's field of view, on the ridge ahead, he suddenly saw a faint flash. Someone. The Lion Army is finally here. Although they are still very far away, they are finally here. Separated by a distance of nearly 2 kilometers, the two rival armies completed a distant gaze. Fire extinguishing, concealment, observation, and evacuation are done in one go. Chen Chen finally confirmed that the flash he saw was indeed the Lion Corps' tracking team. They were moving along the ridge and were accidentally exposed by the reflection of the telescope at the moment the sun rose. But at the same time, they also discovered traces of the East Wind Corps. Chen Chen made 2 mistakes after all. First, he did not expect that the Lion Corps would specifically send out a small group to occupy the ridge to conduct long-distance observation, which was almost useless in the jungle. He also did not expect that the other party would be so lucky that they could observe their own camp through a narrow gap in a river in this large jungle. How difficult is this? A distance of 2 kilometers. Find a puzzle piece with a B printed on it from a 1 by 1 square meter puzzle. Go find it. But the Lion Army found it. They are worthy of being the team that chased after Kansa. I really underestimated them. Second, he really didn't expect the Lion Army to be so fast. Such a speed was obviously beyond the limits of the human body. Fortunately, He was cautious enough and left enough room for response. Although it has been discovered, exposure at this distance does not mean danger. Ultimately, the distance between the two sides is still too far. It is so far away that even if the enemy has a large-caliber anti-material sniper rifle, it is impossible to touch a hair of the Dongfeng core. Not to mention the Dongfeng core. Not only can it not be touched, it can't even be seen with the PSO-1 on the SVD. But even so, Chen Chen did not intend to flee blindly as if nothing had happened. The real danger is not sniper shots and bullets, but information. We saw the first group, and there were only 2 people in that group, which meant that the other groups of the entire line core must be nearby and not far away. Although the role of the ridge position team is most likely only for observation and cannot be used as a reference to determine the location of other tracking teams, Chen Chen has reason to believe that his lead over the line core will not exceed 4 hours. This means that if the opponent is weaving a pocket, then you are already at the opening of the pocket and are about to be pocketed. What to do? Continue to speed up and bet that you are faster than the pocket. Yes, the Dongfeng core may indeed be able to move faster than the pocket, but being faster does not mean that you can escape. This is the brilliance of the Lion Army strategy. They're like a child catching flies with a plastic bag. Chen Chen often did this when he was a child. He liked to catch flies in plastic bags and then watch them hit the wall repeatedly, but couldn't fly out. He would wait until they starved to death and then feed their corpses to the ants as food. Compared with a fly swatter, it is almost not difficult to catch flies with a huge plastic bag. Although to the naked eye, the fly flies much faster than the bag, but no matter how it flies, it is impossible to fly out of the range of the bag. So, don't be a fly, be a wasp, be a mantis. The purpose is to pierce the bag and sting away the person holding the bag. So he ordered. The situation has changed. We need to adjust our strategy. Lin He, from now on you are number 5. You will come with me and act as a fire reconnaissance team and conduct reconnaissance 200 meters ahead. Number 1, number 2, number 3, keep an eye on the cargo and continue along the planned route. Branch number 2, towards the south. Be prepared for battle. We have been exposed. The enemy's encirclement will immediately shrink with our current position as the center. They may encounter us soon. If we really meet, we must defeat the enemy at all costs and destroy their encirclement. We can't let them get any closer, especially not before we reach Wantanjian Pass. Otherwise, we will lose the space to evade and maneuver, and the final battle will be forced into a head-on collision. Clear. The other 3 answered immediately, but Bao Qi couldn't help asking. How can they be so fast? Don't they need to rest? We just rested for 5 hours. Is that even a question? Chen Chen glanced at Jia, and Bao Qi immediately understood and said no more. Then, Shi Dakai asked, Number 4, isn't it too risky to conduct a single investigation? His expression was full of worry. In fact, even if it weren't for his natural tendency to pessimism, it would be impossible not to be worried when faced with such a situation. He went out alone and had to bring Lin He, who had no combat experience, with him. If the subsequent trio did not follow up in time, it would be a horrific encounter. Chen Chen had no chance of surviving because he was facing at least one group from the Lion Legion. The elite among the elite are not someone that a civilian group like Ga Yaozi can challenge. There is no other way. We must maintain sufficient range to advance. Otherwise, if we are surrounded and ambushed, we will surely die. Trust me, be alert, I can handle it. Clear. Shidakai said no more. In the previous battles, he had already developed the habit of trusting Chen Chen unconditionally. And this habit may even overwhelm his pessimistic tendencies. There is nothing this man cannot do. Since he has chosen to go forward alone, he will definitely make this strategy work. Chen Chen checked his weapons one last time, then said to Lin He, walk 1 meter ahead of me. From now on, you are my best and only signpost. After that, he flipped down his night vision goggles and switched to thermal imaging mode. That's right, night vision goggles, based on thermal imaging principles, can also be used during the day. Its principle is simply to receive infrared signals emitted by objects. Unlike low-light night vision, it is actually not affected by the intensity of ambient light. The only drawback is that during the day, due to the influence of sunlight and temperature, the temperature of the environment and objects will rise, and the target highlighting quality of thermal imaging will be relatively poor. Therefore, it is not uncommon to use thermal imagers during daytime in jungle warfare. However, wearing a thermal imager while traveling is definitely not a common thing. The distorted images can quickly make people dizzy. If they have not received special training, they may fall down before they have walked very far. But Chen Chen had to do this, because he knew that such a field of vision advantage would give him a priority discovery advantage of several seconds to more than 10 seconds when he encountered the Lion Army. These 10 or so seconds may very likely determine the outcome of a battle, as well as the life or death of the Dongfeng Corps. Set off. At Chen Chen's command, the other 4 waited where they were, while he and Lin He rushed into the jungle without hesitation. At this time, Lin He's role as a jungle guide was fully utilized. Chen Chen only needs to track his heat signature and follow him along the optimal route without having to worry about the so-called environment. Every step he took was on solid ground, and every passage through the dense forest was smooth. In just a few minutes, they had advanced 200 meters, and the 4 people behind them began to catch up. Execute emergency communication. Keep an eye on the traces I leave behind, and report your location in a timely manner. Clear. Shurdake's voice was very clear in the headphones. When Chen Chen was not in the team, he took on temporary command responsibility. The 2 separate teams moved forward together. With Lin He leading the way, Chen Chen gained a huge speed advantage. He did not waste this speed advantage, but used the time waiting for the rear team to continuously conduct Z-shaped reconnaissance. This was originally a reconnaissance method suitable for sparse jungles, but now, in order to maintain speed, he had to make a trade-off. 3 hours later, the Dongfeng Corps had already embarked on branch route number 2 and began to turn and move in the designated direction. At this time, they were 2 kilometers south of their original route. If the Lion Army is closing in from the south to the southwest, then now is the window of opportunity for the two sides to encounter each other. Chen Chen's spirit was stretched to the limit, and just as he was nervously observing the surroundings, a red shadow flashed across his sight. That's not a pheasant, nor a wild boar. It's a person, with Camp 3 as the center and 4 kilometers as the radius, if the general direction of travel is known. How large is the possible range of a team? The answer is a fan of 25.12 square kilometers. So, within this 25.12 square kilometers, what is the probability that 2 teams of 4 people will meet? The answer is no more than 1 in 10,000. This is why in many criminal investigation programs, even if it is just to search a mountain that does not look that big, it often requires thousands or even tens of thousands of people because the probability of finding the person is too low. But now the Dongfeng Corps is facing a different situation. The searchers first discovered the trail, and then the nearest team immediately went to the starting point of the trail, following the traces of the prey and moving forward, constantly using the radio to inform other teams of the prey's movements and predicting the direction of the prey based on the movement trajectory. The team searching in the opposite direction would intercept and drive away the prey. In this case, the probability of the 2 teams meeting may not reach 100%, but it will definitely reach more than 50%. Because the range that mountain searchers need to search is no longer a fan-shaped area, but a curved segment with an extremely narrow width. Therefore, Chen Chen had already prepared for the encounter between the 2 parties. His attention was always kept in a state of high concentration, and at the moment when the red light flashed, he raised the muzzle of his gun almost subconsciously. Then, he put the gun on his shoulder, put the crosshairs in his eyes, and fired quickly with the 3 points in a straight line. Under full automatic firepower, he gripped the front grip of the 416 Hong Kong dollars and controlled the muzzle jump within a very small range. The more than 20 rounds of strafing caused wood chips to fly in the jungle dozens of meters away, and also caused the Lion Corps Mercenary, who was conducting reconnaissance, to fall to the ground. The other party did not utter a single shout, but Chen Chen's gunshot had already exposed himself. Hidden, he shouted without hesitation, and Lin He fell down immediately. He himself flashed to the side at an extremely fast speed, adjusted the direction of the gun muzzle to the right side of the first enemy who was knocked down, and at the same time used a big tree to block his body. This person was obviously a forward firepower reconnaissance personnel. Regardless of whether they used a Z-shaped reconnaissance or a square-shaped reconnaissance, the other scout should be behind him on the right, and the surveillance team should be in the middle of the 2. Chen Chen's judgment was correct. Just as he hid behind a big tree, gunshots suddenly rang out. 81 bars. PCAM, sure enough, only experienced teams choose basically the same weapons. Chen Chen immediately fell to the ground. He didn't dare to gamble his luck anymore. The Lion Corps is not Jialia. They are not monkeys with guns, but real warriors. Bullets flew across the sky, and Chen Chen even heard a whistling sound, which also meant that the opponent's shooting was extremely accurate and it covered the fan where he was located. Although there were trees blocking the view, the suppression was still strong. These are 2 PCAMs and a Type 81 rifle. Chen Chen immediately pulled out the smoke bomb from his chest and threw it towards the location of the opponent's surveillance team. Afterwards, he crawled forward, first telling Lin He to lie down and not move. Then he moved forward to a low slope and threw another smoke bomb to block the sight of scout number 2. The other side had also opened fire, and Chen Chen discerned with keen awareness that the other side was carefully controlling the firing rate, seemingly wanting to maintain the suppressive firepower as much as possible. This was a very smart move, especially when the strong attack the weak. It could almost make the side invincible. But Chen Chen is not a weak person. From the extremely regular gunfire of the other side, he counted the number of times the other side fired. 262, 728, 29, 30. Chen Chen suddenly stood up, and despite the suppression of the PCAM, he poured out the bullets in the magazine in the direction of scout number 2. It fell down. Chen Chen had no time to celebrate, because the firepower of the other surveillance team was following him relentlessly. Almost as a subconscious reaction, Chen Chen turned his body at an angle and faced the direction where the bullet was coming from. Then, the bulletproof plate on his chest exploded with a bang, and he rolled backwards to the ground. 7.62 by 54 millimeters bullet. This thing is already the limit of what a level 4 bulletproof vest can defend against. If you are unlucky, there is still a certain possibility that it will be penetrated. However, it is better to use the chest to receive the bullet than to be shot from the side through the gap in the bulletproof vest. Captain, Captain, Lin He rushed over anxiously, but Chen Chen pushed him to the ground and said, "Don't fucking move, I have a bulletproof vest." Afterwards, he had no time to check the bullet holes, but immediately changed the magazine and pulled the trigger in the direction where the PCAM machine gun bullet was coming from, in a faith-shooting posture that rarely appears on the professional battlefield but often appears on the African continent. The opponent's gunfire weakened, and Chen Chen knew that one of the PCAMs had started to reload. He really wanted to seize this opportunity, but the other party obviously would not give him a chance. Because, just as the gunfire faded, the scout who was closer to him and did not die immediately actually carried out the last order of his life and threw a grenade in his own direction. With a loud bang, Chen Chen was forced to lie down. The damage of explosives in the jungle was of course greatly reduced, but he couldn't gamble. At this moment, he deeply felt the difference between the Lion Corps and all the enemies he had fought before. They are too professional and have too strong a fighting spirit. Moreover, even when facing a mere one person like me, they use the most complete and repressive tactics. Even a lion will try its best to fight a rabbit. This is what they are like. Chen Chen was pinned to the spot, unable to move, and at the same time, the sound of PKM gunfire was getting closer and closer. The surveillance team locked onto his position and began to move forward to search for the enemy. He looked up at the terrain in front of him, pulled the Type 82 grenade in his hand, and threw it out. But this can only temporarily slow down the opponent's pace. The only thing that can really stop the opponent is another PKM. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of gunfire finally rang out behind him, and Bao Qi arrived. Then, there was the unique, muffled sound of the 35 howitzer. The rifle grenade, hanging on Shi Dekai's Type 81 rifle, passed through the many gaps in the forest and landed accurately near one of the enemy. The PKM, which had just finished reloading, misfired again, and this time, Chen Chen did not give them any chance. Stand up, step sideways away from the enemy's firing range, find a shooting angle, aim, and fire. 6 5.56mm bullets were fired instantly, and Chen Chen, who was moving, sent the bullets into the enemy's temple with incredible accuracy. Cease fire. Cease fire. Number 1, search for the enemy. Kill with grenades. Block with smoke bombs. Number 3, set up alert. Number 2, aim at the 4 o'clock direction. They still have people. And just as Chen Chen's voice fell, a strange picture suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. The big tree next to me exploded without warning, and wood chips flew everywhere. His hair stood up all over his body, and the heavy gunshot came only after the bullet arrived. Get down! There really are people there, and the opponent's support team actually has anti-material sniper rifles. This kind of thing is extremely useless in jungle warfare, and to some extent can even be said to be meaningless, but the moment the gunshot rang out, Chen Chen's heart really stopped for a moment. If I really got hit, there would be no way I would survive. But fortunately, because the shooting range was too narrow, the opponent's shot was clearly just a gamble on luck, and he didn't expect to really hit him at all. But even so, it is a serious threat. The other party just wants to express one meaning. I have something that can break your defense, so be honest and don't get too close. Damn! Chen Chen cursed in a low voice, and then asked Shi Dekai. Number 3, can you see the other party's position? Shi Dekai immediately replied, I can't see it. There's an angle. I'm not on his trajectory. Not on the trajectory? If you are, then cry. Chen Chen thought for a moment and continued. Number 1, throw smoke bombs forward at a distance of 50 meters to create a shelter area extending forward. Number 2, keep firing and provide cover. Pay attention to my position. I will continue to move forward for reconnaissance. Number 3, find a way to confirm the enemy sniper's position. His shooting range is very narrow, and there are not many positions to choose from. Clear. The 3 of them confirmed in turn, and Chen Chen turned over and moved forward, diving into the smoke that Li Bang had just created. His plan was simple. He continued to close the distance with the enemy, and then after the thermal imager found the target, he would instruct Bao to activate the PKMS for fire suppression. At the same time, the 4 of them would search and advance alternately, get into the exchange of fire distance as soon as possible, and then take advantage of the complex terrain and their own bulletproof equipment to kill the enemy team under pressure. This is a forced choice, but it is also the best choice. As long as they can defeat this group coming from the south, it means that a big hole will appear in the enemy's encirclement. The enemy will once again lose judgment on their own movements, forcing them to expand the search range and lose the advantage established by taking drugs. By that time, the Dongfeng Corps would be able to calmly get out of the pocket and continue to advance towards Wantanjian Pass, break through the opponent's necessarily loose defense line, and then head towards Naong Village. However, Chen Chen's plan was perfect, but the opponent's reaction was equally quick. They were clearly short of manpower, and after losing the first group, it was confirmed that the Dongfeng Corps was very powerful. Therefore, after seeing Chen Chen's intention, they did not choose to confront him head-on, but immediately used the stripping tactic to evacuate the battlefield. Gunshots rang out one after another, and bullets continued to pour around Chen Chen. Whether in terms of firing efficiency, accuracy, or evacuation efficiency, the opponent was far superior to the previous Jialuo Legion. Damn it, I can't catch up with them. Chen Chen cursed and stopped. At this moment, he felt like a rabbit being played with by the other party. He couldn't bite anyone even if he wanted to. The other party was too cautious. They had no intention of confronting the Dongfeng Corps head-on. They just wanted to drive the Dongfeng Corps back to the right track. If they took the initiative to attack, they would be ambushed and killed by them. Retreating would be exactly what they wanted. The tactic of layered blocking and segmented interception that was supposed to be used by the Dongfeng Corps was actually used by the Lion Corps. The offensive and defensive positions changed, and they actually seized the most advantageous defensive position in the jungle warfare in this way. They turned themselves into sheepdogs and treated the Dongfeng Corps as sheep. These are evenly matched opponents. Chen Chen clenched the gun in his hand and ordered decisively. Ignore them. Now whoever runs is superior, and whoever chases is inferior. Follow the planned route and keep your distance. If they dare to chase us, we'll attack them. Clear. After the order was given, the group of 6 regrouped, and then, under the leadership of Lin He, they plunged into the dense forest and began to move westward. They are very fast, but the problem is, this group from the Lion Corps is even faster. They could even move through the jungle at high speed and use long-range suppressive firepower to correct the Dongfeng Corps' route. Bullets kept flying, and Chen Chen's anger kept rising. It's so frustrating. However, what can you do no matter how aggrieved you are? As long as you run first and create some distance, you still have a chance. On the other side, the Lion Corps' pursuit team. The squad leader was holding an M82, a 1 large-caliber sniper rifle, which looked extremely abrupt and out of place in the jungle, but what was even more abrupt and out of place was the N/PS-13C thermal imaging sight he installed on the gun. There was no way. He was not a member of the tracking team at all, but was responsible for intercepting at the mountain pass. It was the boss's temporary order that forced him into the jungle. However, this does not mean that he is useless. It was with the help of this gun and this scope that he found his targets several times and almost took out their leader with one shot. But unfortunately, the opponent was impeccable both in terms of cover and retreat route, and every bullet he fired did not fall where it should have. After several rounds of attempts, he finally confirmed one thing. With the remaining 8-man team in his hands, it would be impossible to gain an advantage over the opponent, whether in pursuit or ambush. On the contrary, if you are not careful and the distance is too close and the opponent seizes the opportunity, you may be counterattacked and suddenly wiped out. Therefore, he immediately adjusted his strategy. No more chasing. Or it should be said that we will not hunt down them anymore. All we have to do is keep track of the enemy and use the physical advantage gained from taking drugs to drive them into the predetermined encirclement. They can't run away. After all, they still have goals to accomplish. If there is really no trace of them from beginning to end, then they still have a chance. But now, I have caught up with you and know where you are going. How can you deal with it? Thinking of this, the captain showed a rare smile on his face. He said into the radio, "Keep a close eye on the trail and don't let them get away. Don't worry, you can't run away." On the other end of the radio, the adjutant who was responsible for the firepower reconnaissance and tracking mission immediately responded. He was not only confident in his jungle tracking ability, but even conceded. With a lead less than 300 meters, how could anyone escape from me? Unless they dug a hole and buried themselves in the ground. Of course, even so, he could still find clues from the little bit of dirt on the leaves. If the opponent wanted to ambush by hiding on the spot, he would really be sending the food into his own mouth. Run as much as you can. It won't be long before your physical strength is exhausted to the limit, and that will be the time of your death. He smiled with satisfaction, scanning the traces on the ground, and then said, "Keep moving forward. We are getting closer and closer to them." The surveillance team moves first. Be careful to hide. Don't expose yourself in the forest path. If the enemy sets an ambush, one bullet can kill you. The so-called forest passage refers to a corridor in the dense forest that is not blocked by trees and vegetation. This kind of place is most likely to be used as an ambush point, because standing at one end of the corridor can obtain a relatively longer visible range. I know, I'm not that stupid. The team leader waved his hand in response, but at that moment, he suddenly froze in place, because he saw that the face of a team member next to him exploded. He looked around in confusion, not knowing where the bullet had come from. The fire reconnaissance team did not respond at all. Even if there was an exchange of fire, they should have been the first to engage in fire, right? "Old dog, what's going on?" No one answered him, and dense gunfire came from the headphones. Then, immediately afterwards, a metal object hit him hard on the head. Boom! There were a total of 4 people in the rear surveillance team of the Lion Corps. One of them was shot down by Chen Chen, who was on the tree. Before the remaining 3 could react, they were blown into a bloody mist by 3 Russian-made RGN small cannons thrown accurately by Li Bang in an instant. Without any hesitation, Chen Chen and Li Bang immediately jumped down from the tree, then turned their guns and began to advance in the direction of the Lion Corps' pursuit. There, Bao Qi and Shi Dakai, who were waiting for the opportunity, had already held back 4 members of the Lion Corps' forward reconnaissance team. Due to the difference in firepower, they were now completely suppressed. But fortunately, they were not far away from Chen Chen and the others, only about 250 meters away. It took Chen Chen less than 20 seconds to see the enemy half kneeling behind a thick tree trunk, firing suppressive shots in a standard leaning posture. The opponent never expected that I would appear from behind and was still immersed in the mad shooting at the enemy in front. Chen Chen fired 2 bullets into the back of his head with the CS/LS2, then immediately switched to the 416 Hong Kong dollars, pulled the gun line to the right, and shot away another enemy on the right who was trying to turn the gun around. The 2 PKM guns misfired, and the other 2 riflemen who were in the forward position in the Z-shaped reconnaissance were completely stunned. They subconsciously turned their heads back to be on guard, but they didn't expect that Chen Chen, who had just killed 2 people, would not confront them head-on. Instead, he immediately threw the last smoke bomb, stepped sideways to hide behind the cover, and used the walkie-talkie to call Bao Qi and Shi Dakai to press forward. Under the alternating firepower, the 2 riflemen were distracted. Chen Chen stuck his head out to observe and found through the smoke that the opponent's gun muzzle had turned again. So he decisively followed up and continued firing, suppressing the opponent on the reverse slope of a small slope. Number 1, grenade. At this time, Li Bang, who was wearing special carrying gear, became the absolute pillar of firepower. He held the gun in his right hand and pulled out a grenade with his left hand and threw it. The RGO big cannon exploded accurately above the heads of the 2 riflemen. One more! There was another loud bang, and the enemy on the opposite side was completely silent. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Chen Chen shouted loudly. Number 2, number 3, keep going forward and firing. Number 1, follow me and turn around and be alert. Receive. The 3 of them answered in unison, and then Chen Chen turned his gun around and walked back the way he came. In fact, there was no need for him to fire another shot. Among the 8 people in the Lion Corps, 4 are in the reconnaissance team and 4 are in the surveillance team. He and Li Bang were dealing with the surveillance team. One of them was shot in the head by him, and the other 3 were shot in the head by Li Bang. Well, it was blown up with a grenade. The scene was horrific. With the offensive grenade and the impact fuse, the 3 men's heads exploded and their entire upper bodies exploded. Ugh! Even Li Bang, who had actually killed someone, couldn't help but retching when he saw this scene. Chen Chen ignored him and quickly checked the surroundings. Then he asked on the radio, "Number 2, number 3, how is the situation?" Confirmed that they have all been killed. There should be no more enemies. Understood. Bring the goods and join me. Chen Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the end, they won the encounter. From the initial initiative gained by using the strategy of normalizing the use of thermal imaging devices, to quickly suppressing and knocking down the enemy's first forward firepower group, to the enemy's quick response and adoption of the kite strategy, to our side being forced to flee, and then to dividing our troops to use the most adventurous tree ambush in jungle warfare. The entire process actually took less than 30 minutes. But these 30 minutes were too long. I never thought that I could become a Viet Cong. What I didn't expect was that the Viet Cong were so happy to be here. No matter how you look at it, this battle was truly the hardest one Chen Chen had ever fought since he came to this world. Even the indoor battle when I just traveled through time was not as dangerous as this one. The opponent's professionalism lies not only in their use of tactics such as forward fire reconnaissance, Z-shaped search, and peeling retreat, but also in their smooth transition and integration between various tactics. To achieve this, team formation is of paramount importance. They use an organizational method similar to the 3-3 system or the 4-4 system, but it is more complicated. The first group to be destroyed was actually the horn of this 12-man team, and its relationship with the two following teams was reconnaissance and surveillance, respectively. Each team has a layer of reconnaissance and surveillance within it. Under this organizational form, the team's perception and support capabilities in the jungle have been stretched to the limit of tactics. If the Dongfeng Corps had not continuously used smoke bombs to establish the field of vision advantage of thermal imaging equipment, the Dongfeng Corps might have been bitten to death in the first encounter. Overall, this victory was certainly related to Chen Chen's extremely bold tactical decision, but more importantly, it was due to the suppression of equipment. The enemy died because they had no portable thermal imagers. They died because of the smoke bombs thrown everywhere by our side. Obviously, the other members of the Dongfeng Corps also realized this. The look in their eyes when they looked at Chen Chen was filled with undisguised awe, because it was this man who insisted that everyone replace most of the grenades and stun grenades with smoke bombs before setting off. This decision also saved everyone's lives. He really had a plan that was well thought out. Number 4, confirmed that all enemy forces are dead. 8 in total, no trace of enemies around. After quickly conducting a round of reconnaissance, Shi Dakai returned to report. Chen Chen nodded slightly. Clean up the battlefield and retreat. Number 3, come here and throw away your SVD. There is a big treasure here. Chen Chen picked up the M82A1. In the explosion just now, the gun was slammed to the ground, but to his surprise, both the gun itself and the thermal imaging sight on the gun were still usable. It seems that American things are not as fragile as some people say. Of course, things that really go to the battlefield cannot be too delicate and fragile. Shi Dakai excitedly took the gun from Chen Chen, hesitated for a moment, and still did not throw away the SVD. Although they are both sniper rifles, their functions are different. He is willing to bear more weight, even if it means his teeth are broken. Number 5, Lin He, go over there and pick out a night vision device. It's all pulsar low-light night vision. It's better than what you have now. Lin He, who had been in charge of guarding Jaya, ran away immediately, deftly took off a helmet with night vision goggles from the corpse and put it on his head. After cleaning up the battlefield, Chen Chen pulled out the high-power radio that he had wanted for a long time, and just as he got it, a man's voice came from the radio. Eagle, what's going on? Is there a firefight? Is the rabbit still there? Chen Chen paused, then replied, we are chasing them. We are following the plan and driving the rabbits to the west. Silence. A full half-minute passed before the radio heard another voice. You're a wreck. All my people are dead? That's right. Unable to fool people. Chen Chen simply stopped acting. Very good. You are very strong. But we still have 40 of us, and the nearest team is at most 1 kilometer away from you. Do you think you can escape? Hand the man over. The Lion Corps welcomes you. Why be a rabbit when you can be a lion? Chen Chen laughed and replied, you think too much. I'm not just any fucking rabbit. There are still some manuscripts saved. Try your best. It depends on you whether you can squeeze them out. For the next 40 hours, the only thing the Dongfeng Corps did was to run away. Although the commander of the Lion Corps threatened that the nearest group was less than 1 kilometer away from them, Chen Chen knew that this number was impossible to achieve anyway. Because with their number, it is absolutely impossible to deploy more than 3 teams in the same direction. Otherwise, the pocket cannot be formed, and their current non-contact expulsion strategy is simply untenable. Therefore, he had no worries at all, but accurately calculated the route of advance and rest time according to the predetermined plan. Until finally, when he arrived at Wantanjian Pass, there was no further exchange of fire. Dull, tedious, and exhausting. Everyone's physical condition has reached its limit, but they cannot rest any longer because this is the last and most dangerous moment. On a high mountain outside the east entrance of the mountain pass, for members of the Dongfeng Corps lay on the top of the mountain, carefully observing the movements of the enemy in the distance at the mountain pass. The Lion Corps did arrange guards here, but the problem is that they are indeed short of manpower. The word pass sounds like a narrow passage, but in fact, it just represents the transition from jungle to human habitation. The width of the passage is nearly 2 kilometers, and the vegetation gradually changes from dense to sparse, and finally disappears a cliff-like at the farmland. Theoretically, as long as the 6 people kept a low profile, it would only take them half an hour to completely cross the mountain pass and reach the flat ground from their current position. And after reaching the flat ground, they were not without cover. With the help of the passages between farmlands and orchards, they can quickly reach Naong village and cross a 2-kilometer area to reach a safe area within 20 minutes. The only thing we need to do now is to keep an eye on the enemy's sentry positions and determine the route to advance. Number 4, I saw a total of 4 targets, all of which were open sentries. They are prominently positioned, seemingly to allow for a wider field of view. I saw that too, Chen Chen replied in a low voice. 1 person in the tower outside the mountain pass, 2 people in the bunker position, and 2 people on patrol post. There were also signs of armed activity in 2 other houses, with at least 8 people on duty. Only 8. Seems okay, Bao Qi said in a low voice. Yes, it's fine. The mountain pass is nearly 2 kilometers wide. How can such a small number of people defend it? If you place secret sentries in the jungle, it's completely a matter of luck. Give the cargo medicine and put on the gag. We'll rest for 20 minutes and get ready to go. Chen Chen gave a decisive order, and everyone took action, retreating to the reverse slope and starting to prepare for the last section of the journey. Jia took the medicine and put on the gag. Lin Yi's gun was forcibly taken away and put on Li Bang's back. All 6 of them tightened their gear, and anything that might make a noise was tied up tightly. After everything was ready, the Dongfeng Corps officially began to cross the mountain pass at 11 o'clock in the night. This will be the boundary between life and death. If they could get over it, the mission would be more than 90% successful. If they couldn't get over it, all their efforts would be wasted. However, what Chen Chen didn't expect was that their operation was so smooth that it was unbelievable. Just as he expected, it took them only 25 minutes to pass the mountain pass, and the Lion Corps sentries did not respond at all. Perhaps this is the result of preferring to be a wasp rather than a fly? In any case, Nayong village is indeed in sight. As long as you get there, you'll enter the territory of the 756th Brigade, and their rules are the same as those of the Northern Shan State Army, which is that you are not allowed to shoot within your jurisdiction. I just don't believe it. You are a Lion Corps that crossed the border from Lost State. You have already made a bad impression on your identity. Do you dare to offend SSAS? Walking on the path between the orchards, Chen Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. He took out the satellite phone he had prepared long ago from his waterproof bag and dialed the Jackal's number. After a short wait, the call was connected. The Jackal's voice sounded particularly excited. Shipwreck, you've arrived? We are on our way to Nayong Village. I need you to confirm the situation in Nayong Village. At the same time, confirm whether your support has arrived in Mengbin. If they have them rush to Nayong Village immediately. We will take over in Nayong Village. Got it, Shipwreck, good job. How far are you from Nayong Village? Chen Chen raised his head and glanced at the lights in the distance, then replied, it's about 1 kilometer and you can get there in 10 minutes. Understood. Our support personnel will be here soon. Don't hang up and keep the communication open. Okay, keep the communication open. Chen Chen nodded slightly, then waved his hand, and the 6 people continued to move forward. Nayong Village is really right in front of us. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but feel excited. This time, the mission was difficult at the beginning and during the process, but the ending was unexpectedly simple. Just walk a few more minutes and hand the person over to the contact personnel, and the matter will be completely over. Not only is there a cash gain of $500,000, but there is also the right of priority in purchasing equipment, and the platform in Chesley is satisfying just thinking about it. Chen Chen took a deep breath and gave an order in a low voice. Watch your steps. Don't let your efforts fall short at the last moment. Clear. The others answered in a low voice, but in fact they all disagreed to some extent. We have come this far. What else could go wrong? The Lion Corps has been left behind, and ahead is the safe zone designated by the Military Management Committee and the Public Security Brigade. Their steps subconsciously became lighter, but at this moment, Chen Chen suddenly spoke. Get down. Take cover. Instinctively, Li Bang pushed down Lin He beside him, and Shi Dakai pushed down Jia beside him. Everyone looked at Chen Chen in confusion, but at this time his brows were furrowed. Something is wrong in Nayong Village. He had vaguely sensed it when he first walked towards Nayong Village, but he could never tell what it was. Until this moment, a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed through his mind. Damn it, 2009, Southern Shan State, a small mountain village some distance from Mongbin, Onziakwaki. The lights were on, even if there were only a few of them. It was absolutely abnormal and outrageous. You know, in this era, there were few lights in the military camp. At this moment, the voice of the Jackal was heard from the satellite phone. Shipwreck, don't go to Nayong Village. 756 said they would be an hour late. This doesn't make sense at all. The Lion Army will definitely be ambushing there. What a good move. If you can't catch up with me, take out my allies and then ambush me in the area where I thought it was safe. The Lion Corps bribed the 756th Brigade? Chen Chen asked. No, they said it was an emergency. This must be an excuse. I don't know who it is, but I just checked with headquarters. It's not our people. It's not from Thailand. Well, it would be impossible for the Lion Corps to defeat the 756th Brigade by itself. Even if it was just to delay their promise by half an hour. There must be some other reason. The combination of the two resulted in this result. 756th Brigade, family, a shot of a hotel in Vientiane. Chen Chen, you're fucking dead. Jackal, you fool. You've exposed us. Chen Chen said in a low voice. It wasn't me. It was the person who contacted us who called the 756th Brigade. What can we do? We have to confirm the situation. You need to retreat immediately. The Lion Army has already started to take action. It's too fucking late. Chen Chen sighed. He knew that the Jackal was not to blame for what happened, but the problem was that he really couldn't help but scold him. In the distance, the Lion Corps sentries who had let them off easily were all in action, and several cars with headlights on were speeding towards them. Then, action took place in Nayong Village. Just as Chen Chen expected, more than 20 armed men emerged and quickly dispersed. What made Chen Chen most uneasy was that the other party's goal was extremely clear. After all, this is not a jungle anymore. If the enemy has thermal imaging equipment, they can just scan around and our position will be exposed. Number 4, how do you play? Bao Qi asked. Everyone was extremely nervous. They fully understood how bad the situation was. But what surprised Chen Chen was that they were not thinking about how to run but how to fight. This made Chen Chen feel relieved. As long as you still want to fight, you will fight. After quickly observing the enemy situation, Chen Chen said, It's too late to go back into the jungle. We only have 5 minutes at most. We are truly surrounded this time. Let's fight head on. Go left and seize the commanding heights. Number 3. Give me the M82. Use your SVD to fire for me. Number 1. Number 2. Hold back the enemy in the direction of Naong village on the east side. I need to deal with the enemy at Wontongian Pass first. Number 5. Keep an eye on the goods. She can't die even if you do. Do you understand? Clear. Everyone answered at once. Even Lin He, who was trembling all over, spoke without any hesitation. Yes, he was scared. After all, he is just a teenager. But his hand firmly grasped Ga Yaozi's shoulder. Chen Chen believed that if the situation really came to the most extreme, he would block the bullet for Ga Yaozi. In 2 minutes, all members of the Dongfeng Corps reached the commanding heights on the right side of the orchard. In such an open terrain, with both sides having thermal imagers, hiding has no meaning. Whoever is faster will survive. Whoever is stronger will win. Chen Chen suddenly lay down, loaded the M82A1, aimed in 1 second, and fired in an instant. White smoke came out of the engine of a Jeep about 600 meters away, and then, through the PSO-1 sight, a 7.62 by 54 millimeters bullet inaccurately passed through the glass of the cab. No one was hurt, but he didn't stop. When Chen Chen turned his gun and shot the driver of another pickup truck into powder, Sherdakai's surging adrenaline finally brought him extraordinary performance. The SVD's 6 bullets killed the 2 enemies in the Jeep. The remaining members immediately began to hide, and Chen Chen didn't bother to take care of them, but immediately destroyed the 3rd pickup truck. This is not difficult. Many people don't know that the M82A1, the so-called barrage cannon, is semi-automatic. After 10 rounds of bullets were fired, all the vehicles were smoking. Reload! Cover! Chen Chen shouted loudly, and Dakai beside him immediately took the 416 Hong Kong dollars that Chen Chen had placed aside and began to suppress continuously with the help of the conch scope. Magazine. Chen Chen threw 2 magazines over. Under the current circumstances, letting Dakai use the 416 Hong Kong dollars to take on the role of observer is indeed the best choice. After a quick reload, the suppression continued. Equals, and just as he was changing the bullet, a bullet whistled past Dakai's left shoulder. Sniper! Quattro. Chen Chen immediately turned the gun around, and with sure dake suppression, he found the sniper's position. Behind the engine of a pickup truck is the most typical shelter location. But all shelters have their limits. A .50 BMG bullet directly shattered the entire engine compartment of the pickup truck. The bullet continued to move forward, along with fragments of the engine and hood, and exploded into the sniper's body, like a fragmentation grenade. There's another one at 10 o'clock. Dakai suddenly stood up, and this action made Chen Chen stunned for a moment. But soon, he knew what the other party was doing. A bullet hit the bulletproof plate on his chest with a bang, and Dakai fell to the ground immediately. The place where he was shot was originally above the shoulder. He has learned the unique skill of catching bullets by himself. Number 4, deal with him quickly. Dakai shouted with difficulty. He struggled to crawl back to the shooting position, changed the magazine, and continued shooting. Without him saying anything more, Chen Chen's gun was already aimed at the sniper. Both sides opened fire almost at the same time. Chen Chen did not dodge or evade. The opponent's bullet narrowly grazed his helmet, while his own bullet cut the opponent in half. Damn accurate. His position was better than Dakai's, with only his head basically exposed, but the opponent still managed to hit him. Fortunately, Dakai reacted quickly, otherwise, he would have fallen down now. The 2 most threatening targets were destroyed, and Dakai switched back to SVD. With the help of 2 sniper rifles, the enemies from Wontongian Pass were completely suppressed, but for the time being, the Dongfeng Corps could not deal with all of them. They all found shelter and hid, waiting for support from the team members from Naong village. Number 3, support number 1 and number 2. Chen Chen gave the order again. At this time, the gunshots from Bao Qi and Li Bang began to sound intensively. Without sniper rifles, they could not suppress the enemy forces of more than 20 people advancing in a scattered manner with just light machine guns. The enemy got off the vehicle and dispersed as soon as they advanced within 600 meters, and they did not even cause any casualties. It won't be long before both sides enter a range of combat that will incur the greatest casualties and fastest speed. Once the enemy completes the encirclement, even a god will not be able to survive. Mortar! Behind the low wall of the farmhouse at 2 o'clock. Baoqi Sautet Lao Li. Dakai quickly adjusted the muzzle of the gun, but of course he was too late. A burst of white smoke flashed, and the shell rose into the air, but fortunately, this was only the first calibration. SVD, gunfire rang out continuously, and the first gunner was knocked down. Nearly 30 seconds later, the shell landed in the orchard on the east side of the commanding heights. Branches and leaves flew everywhere, and a shallow pit was blown out on the ground. They have guns, cannons, night vision goggles, thermal imaging, and their number is 10 times that of ours. How can we fight this? At this moment, an RPG came from the direction of Naong village, almost brushing Chen Chen's scalp, and flew towards the direction of Wontongian Pass. Zhao was almost in despair. She didn't know if she had any chance of surviving in such a situation, but at this moment, she heard the man say, "Everyone, march west quickly and defeat the enemy in Wontongyin's direction first." There are still 7 enemies left in Wontongyin's direction. In Chen Chen's opinion, they can definitely fight against them. Yes, they had 2 heavy machine guns mounted on 2 pickup trucks, but so what? Under .50, everyone is equal. Quickly advancing to a distance of about 400 meters, under the cover of Dakai's fire suppression, Chen Chen smashed the receiver of an 85 heavy machine gun with a shot from the side, and then continued to move forward, and at a distance of 300 meters, he shot a bullet at a mercenary who was trying to operate another heavy machine gun. really crushing damage. After these 2 shots were fired, no one approached the heavy machine gun again. The one with the exploded receiver is definitely impossible to fire again, and the other one is a sitting duck. As a result, the enemy's firepower intensity was instantly suppressed by 1 level. Even though they still had more than 3 light machine guns and general-purpose machine guns, as well as explosives including RPGs, the threat to the Dongfeng Corps had actually been greatly reduced. Move forward quickly. Move forward quickly. Number 5, take the gun and keep an eye on the cargo. Number 1, push forward. Throw the smoke bomb. Number 2 and number 3, take turns to cover and hold back the enemy behind. Chen Chen once again left the task of clearing the battlefield to himself. At a distance of 200 meters, he used the M82A1 to shoot down the last enemy, who was deceiving himself and hiding behind the car. Then he threw the gun in the direction of Lin He and immediately switched to the 416 Hong Kong dollars and rushed forward quickly. Li Bang's smoke bombs were still being thrown continuously, for smoke bombs intermittently blocked a full 200-meter distance on their route. In such an environment, Chen Chen once again turned into a demon in the smoke. Use thermal imaging to search for the enemy, machine aiming to aim, and long burst shooting to kill. No one goes after a headshot on the battlefield. As long as they can hit the target, that's good enough. The advance went extremely smoothly, and when they reached the location of the first destroyed jeep, there were only 3 enemies left nearby. 2 of them were firing from behind a bunker on the slope, and Li Bang directly threw a defensive grenade, accurately sending them away. The last person fell under the muzzle of Chen Chen's precise shooting. The situation of being attacked from both sides was finally broken, but this did not mean that the Dongfeng Corps was safe. The enemies coming from Neong Village are advancing steadily. Although they did not use vehicles at the first time, their speed is still extremely fast. The main reason is that their numbers are too large, and Shi Dakai and Bao Qi's firepower is simply too limited. Moreover, after confirming that all the blockers in Wang Tongyin's direction were killed, someone returned to drive. Number 2 and number 3, please retreat. I will take over the cover. Chen Chen gave a loud order and picked up the M82 that Lin He had placed beside him. However, before he even had time to aim, an accident, or an inevitable accident, happened. Bao Qi suddenly fell down while running, then struggled to crawl forward 2 steps and fell onto a slope. Shi Dakai, who was providing cover at the front, still lacked practical experience. In this situation, he actually chose to help Bao Qi first. Not surprisingly, he also fell down on the spot. "Hold!" Chen Chen shouted, and then immediately threw a smoke bomb towards their position. But the distance was too far after all. Only Li Bang simply dropped his gun, took a run-up run, and decisively fired the smoke bomb, which landed accurately in front of Bao Qi and Li Bang nearly 90 meters away. Number 2, number 3, report your injuries. Chen Chen was really scared. He was afraid that his call would not be responded to, because that means that in just a few seconds, the Dongfeng Corps' casualties have exceeded 40%. Fortunately, replies from both of them came over the radio soon. Number 2 was shot in the calf and left arm, but he's okay and can still stand. Number 3 has a penetrating wound on the left side of his abdomen. It shouldn't be a big problem, but I can't stand up. It is very normal to feel weak after being shot in the torso. Even if the injury is not serious, there is a high probability that you will feel powerless all over due to the body's instinctive protection mechanism. The injuries of both of them are not fatal for the time being, which is good news. But how to get them back has become the biggest problem. Chen Chen didn't have time to think about it, and immediately ordered, "Stay behind the bunker and don't move." Number 2, treat the wound. Number 1, do you have any smoke bombs? 2, throw one in front of me and one to the left of position 3. Then get in the car and drive. Number 5, take the cargo to the back seat of the pickup truck. Go pick up that sniper rifle. That M24. Clear. At this time, Chen Chen had already come to the rear of the pickup truck with the machine gun still intact. There were 2 enemies on the ground. He did not hesitate to end their pain with 1 shot. Then at the moment the smoke bomb exploded, he flipped over and grasped the handle of the heavy machine gun. The safety was already on and bullets were pouring out. What's even better is that the other party actually loaded the tracer bullets strictly according to the standards. At this moment, the area within a 1-kilometer radius has become Chen Chen's home court. Li Bang opened the driver's door and first threw out half of the enemy's upper body. Then he pulled out the mess of flesh and blood that covered the seat. Finally, he jumped into the driver's seat, started the car, stepped on the accelerator, and the pickup truck rushed out, driving towards the direction where Bao Qi and Shi Dakai fell. The muzzle of Chen Chen's gun jumped up for a moment due to inertia, but with this jump, he actually hit an enemy. This suddenly gave him a strong intuition. Maybe he should try his luck. In the distance in the Lion Legion, Ga Yaozi was almost going crazy. He had already made a perfect plan, but for some reason, the other party did not take the bait. Are you kidding me? The end of victory is right in front of you, and the pursuers are behind you. But instead of running to the safe zone, you start firing at the pursuers behind you. Did he think he had lived too long? However, he had to admit that the other party had indeed chosen the only way to survive in this extremely tense situation. They defeated the pursuers from behind while facing fire from both sides. And now, they even managed to snatch their own heavy machine gun pickup. Damn it, what kind of monster is this? For a moment, Ga Yaozi almost felt that he should give up, but the problem was that he had already lost too much for this mission. A mercenary group of 48 people lost 12 in the jungle. And now, in the blink of an eye, another 12 were killed. All 6 groups were wiped out. They were the elite troops that they had trained with great difficulty and had been through many battles. The man who sank the ship caused the most casualties. It can even be said that the so-called Dongfeng Corps was supported by him alone. As for the other team members, they were just cleaning the corners under his leadership. What the fuck is this god of war? During the entire attack, he tried to arrange snipers to shoot him down more than once, but failed more than once. His actions are so precise. Even under extremely high pressure, he did not make any mistakes. No mistakes in positioning, no lag in reaction, no drop in accuracy, and no stupidity like the other two members of his team. This is really an extremely terrifying ability, because Ga Yaozi knows that all casualties on the battlefield are actually caused by mistakes on one side. If you stick your head out when you shouldn't, you are dead. If you move when you shouldn't, you are also dead. If you miss the target when you should, you are even more dead than dead. To err is human, to die is human. But he just didn't make any mistakes with this shipwreck. Even before he got on the pickup truck, he did not forget to ask his team members to throw a smoke bomb to make his sniper lose sight. He doesn't seem like a human being, but rather like a precision operating machine. He must be killed. Ga Yaozi took a deep breath and suddenly shouted, "Drive the car over here and chase him. Bring me the RPG." Sure, Ga Yaozi didn't feel that he was going to die, but he did feel that his current situation was not very good. There were narrow shelters, dense gunfire, and even occasional explosions around them. It is very likely that the next explosion will fall near him. After all, the opponent has fired so many mortars, and the calibration should have been completed anyway. Ga Yaozi beside him had quickly put a tourniquet on his left arm and bandaged his left leg, and was now bandaging his abdominal wound. But the bandage didn't seem to be very effective, and blood was still flowing out. He clenched his teeth in pain, feeling the bullets whizzing past, and suddenly said, "Number 2, you go first. I'm too badly injured to walk." Ga Yaozi, who was tying a bandage, was obviously stunned. He never expected that this company commander, who he thought was quite afraid of death, could actually say such words. He has indeed changed. However, such a change happening on the battlefield is really too unlucky. So Ga Yaozi immediately replied, "You won't die." The bullet penetrated the bulletproof plate and got embedded inside. But the kinetic energy is very small, so it's basically no problem. Hold on for now. When we get back, we'll have surgery to remove the bullet, and that'll be basically it. Trust me, number 4 won't abandon us. After hearing what Ga Yaozi said, Ga Yaozi hesitated a little. Is it really worth it? They have already boarded the pickup truck, and as long as they flee in the opposite direction, they will almost certainly be able to escape the Lion Army's pursuit. Why did he come to save me? Why did he take the risk? I and him. Chen Chen and I were not comrades who had shared weal and woe. I was just following him in the fight. Maybe if I were the one making the decision, the pickup truck would never move forward. But Chen Chen, he just held the gun and fired firmly and rushed straight forward. At this moment, a fire finally ignited in Ga Yaozi's heart. He said decisively, "Number 2, hold me and lie on the ground. Wait for the car to come. We'll get in the back fight right away. Hurry up, clear." Ga Yaozi immediately made preparations as he requested, and just a dozen seconds later, the pickup truck driven by Li Bang braked quickly in front of them. "Get in the car." Chen Chen, who was behind the machine gun, shouted without turning his head. The two squeezed out the last bit of strength in their bodies, supported each other, and rushed into the car. Then they stepped on the accelerator again, and the pickup truck turned around immediately. At this moment, an RPG narrowly missed them. Chen Chen had already turned his gun and aimed it at an enemy vehicle pursuing him from behind. Ga Yaozi gripped the gun tightly again. At this moment, he was extremely calm. He suddenly felt that he was enlightened. The SVD in my hand seemed to come alive. That month of training, the thousands of bullets he fired, began to gather into soil in his body, and a seed sprouted in this soil. He did not pick up the M82A1 that was casually thrown in the back of the rifle, but picked up the SVD. He took off his night vision goggles, but the tiny red silhouette still remained on his retina. He memorized the enemy's direction, and then through the PSO-1, in the dim light, he saw the enemy who had just picked up the RPG. The bumps of the pickup truck seriously affected his aim, but every time the target left that small mirror world, he could always pull it back in the first place. Finally, at a certain moment, the pickup truck gave him 2 seconds of stability. At a distance of nearly 400 meters, the shot was deadly. Before the enemy could pull the trigger of the RPG, a flower of blood exploded at his collar. Ga Yaozi felt a little regretful. He had originally thought that Wu Dao's shot would hit the opponent between his eyebrows. But that was enough that at least it wasn't blocked by the bulletproof vest. There's blood. This time, real blood was seen. Chen Chen suddenly discovered that the enemy on the opposite side fell into chaos. All the pursuers stopped, and the pickup truck that was about to catch up with them even went back. The other mercenaries who were still firing at them also stopped firing and gradually gathered in the same direction. Chen Chen pulled the trigger almost without hesitation. He didn't care why the other side stopped firing. He only knew that on the battlefield, when people gathered together, it was easy to kill. And along with the tracer bullet indication, the 12.7mm caliber bullet did fall into the crowd. But unfortunately, the distance was too far, and the damage caused by this wave of shooting was not significant. At most, 2 people were knocked down, while the others immediately hid after a brief counterattack. There was no chance to fire again. But it is definitely enough. The pickup truck was far away from the battlefield. Although Li Bang was not familiar with this area, he still successfully found a country road that was passable. Then, under the guidance of the map, Chen Chen drove southeast. That is the direction of Mangbin. The satellite call was disconnected, so Chen Chen dialed Jackal's number again and agreed on a new meeting point in Mangbin City. Then he immediately squatted down and began to check the injuries of Ga Yaozi and Ga Yaozi. Ga Yaozi's left arm was just grazed by the bullet, which was not a serious problem. His left leg's calf muscle was pierced, but the bleeding had stopped at this time. Chen Chen put him aside, unwrapped Ga Yaozi's bandages, and began to examine his wounds. The wound was very severe, and I couldn't see what was going on at all. But judging from the bleeding, at least there is no damage to the major organs. It is probably just the intestines that are severed. You may be infected for a while, but there will be no problem recovering afterwards. Don't be afraid. I'm mainly worried that your liver and pancreas might be damaged. Obviously, that's not the case now. At this rate of bleeding, it will take at least 6 hours for you to die. Damn, the ceramic bulletproof plate is only strong in the first round of protection. The second round of protection is really too poor. I still have to replace it with steel in the future. Come on, hold the wound, we'll be there soon. Hearing his words, Dakai nodded slowly. Then, amid the noisy roar of the engine, he suddenly asked in a low voice, "Number 4, am I going to die?" The blood loss had caused Dakai to show some signs of shock, and his consciousness was obviously not very clear at this time. As his body continued to feel colder and his hands touched the sticky blood, he really thought that the words he heard were just well-intentioned comfort. However, Chen Chen was stunned. Haven't I made myself clear enough? He subconsciously wiped his hands on Dakai's clothes, and then said, "If you are really worried, just take a nap. I will let Bao Qi help you. How can it be so easy to die from such a small wound? It was penetrated, but it's not like there's no armor left. Don't worry, no one will die in the short term." Oh, wrong. Chen Chen Musti. The pickup truck went around in a big circle and finally arrived outside Mengbin City. There, Chen Chen finally saw the people coming to pick him up. What surprised him was that these people were not Thais, but soldiers wearing military uniforms from the so-called Special Operations Brigade of the 756th Brigade. Without hesitation, he pushed Jia into the other person's hands. The latter turned around and looked at him deeply, with complex emotions in his eyes. Chen Chen didn't look at her, but said to the leader of the handover, "I have brought the person here, and I will not pursue any of the matters. Find me the best hospital, my friend is injured. Medina Hospital, the operating table is ready." The leader answered immediately, his expression polite, but with a hint of awe. He couldn't help but be in awe, because just 2 minutes ago, he received a piece of news that stunned him. The leader of the Lion Corps, Hu Kaicheng, the man who had worked in the mercenary field for 20 years and once cooperated with the Hua State Army to defeat Kinsa, died. The Lion Corps, which was supposed to ambush the Dongfeng Corps near Nayang village, lost a total of 18 people. Adding to their initial losses in the jungle, half of the Lion Corps of more than 50 people had been wiped out. It was defeated by 4 people. And that's not all. In 4 days, nearly 100 people were killed. This 4-man team has been fighting continuously since the moment they left Menka. The Piaoying Battalion was just a sacrifice for them. Ga Yaozi was just a fly they swatted to death, and the Lion Corps was their real whetstone. And now, this whetstone was cut off by a violent blow. What kind of horror story is this? The final battle should have been their final destination. The Lion Corps had a deliberate plan, was well-rested, had superior equipment, and had a numerical advantage. From any angle, the Dongfeng Corps was doomed. But not only did they not die, they actually bit the powerful enemy to death. What kind of monsters are they? Or what kind of monsters are standing before him? Not only him, even the person in charge of the 756th Brigade who was responsible for contacting Chasely was frightened. Yes, they did want to cause some trouble for the Dongfeng Corps at the beginning. They originally planned to let this Special Operations Brigade take over the goods after all the Dongfeng Corps members were killed. This way they could maintain their cooperative relationship with Thailand and avenge the brother who died in Munka. But they never expected that they had no chance to take over at all. When the battle got to this point, they suddenly discovered one thing. Such a mercenary group, even if only considered from the most rational perspective, is much more valuable than the so-called He family who died in Munka. After all, what status could a person who was sent to such a hellhole as a Proton have in the 756th Brigade? It's dead. So let's quickly win over this dragon that has crossed the river. Since they survived, it means the matter is over. There was no way that Chasely would accept the result of the Dongfeng Corps dying in Mengbin City. That would be a challenge to the authority of their giant company and would definitely lead to resolute retaliation. So, be sure to give them what they want. Are there any injured people? Go to the hospital. Go to the best hospital. Don't let the wounded die. So, after a simple handover, the 5-member team from the Dongfeng Corps followed the Special Operations Brigade's vehicle and rushed all the way to Medina Hospital. The medical staff who had been prepared long ago rushed forward and pushed Dakai and Bao Qi into the operating room. Blood transfusion, surgery, sutures. With VIP treatment, the doctor's movements were frighteningly fast. In just 2 hours, the two were pushed out of the operating room and into the advanced ward that had been prepared long ago. It's nothing serious. The gunshot wound to the calf is relatively serious, with muscle tearing. But because the bleeding was stopped and bandaged in time, it's not a big problem. It's estimated that it will recover in 3 to 6 months. The other one had an intestinal rupture and lost a lot of blood. We have already performed sutures, debridement, and anti-infection treatment. As long as the infection can be overcome, recovery will be faster. In the ward, the doctor said to Chen Chen, after hearing his words. Both Chen Chen and the leader of the Special Operations Brigade accompanying him breathed a sigh of relief. I see. Thank you very much. Chen Chen spoke. After giving the medical instructions, the doctor turned and left the ward. The team leader also said goodbye, but before leaving, he left a meaningful message for Chen Chen. Commander, he asked me to tell you that he hopes this matter ends here. Understood, that's all. Chen Chen said fluently that the 756th Brigade, who temporarily rebelled and stood aside, was of course hateful, but they were not their first target. His real enemy is Chen Chen, who knew that the mission was extremely dangerous, knew that such revenge might lead to the annihilation of his own side, and knew that the interests of all major forces in Minka City would be damaged if the mission failed. But he still threw out the handle in his hand regardless and wanted to kill the Dongfeng Corps. Is he a fun guy? Come on, he's a complete destabilizing factor. Apure brainless bandit. No wonder Peng Shuqing said at the time that he had a conflict with his brother. Really, if I were the brigade commander, I would also have conflicts with his brainless brother. I can't let this poisonous snake stay by my side, especially when I still have to develop and lay a foundation in Mengka in the future. This time, he was able to create such a big obstacle for me, and I was lucky enough not to die. What about next time? He must die. But how to make his death reasonable and how to make his death not affect the Dongfeng Corps is a big problem. Of course, Chen Chen could take a gamble and rush to Mengka and then return before everyone reacted, but this was too unsafe. A detailed plan is necessary, and this is probably something that I need to complete independently while other team members are recovering from their injuries. After the Special Operations Brigade had completely withdrawn, Chen Chen called Jackal. I have settled everything here. The wounded need to rest for a few days. I will stay in Mengbin during this time. You can arrange the rest yourself. I need to get some sleep first. Can you guarantee that this place is safe? The Jackal on the other side had a tone of obvious apology, and he said, I'm sorry about what happened this time. I overestimated the moral level of the 756th Brigade. We have confirmed that they were not bribed by anyone. They just wanted to pick the fruits. However, you can rest assured now. The headquarters has warned them that if you die, they will get nothing. Sleep well. I will bring people to Mengbin in a few days to pick you up. Clear. Chen Chen paused and did not refute the Jackal. Obviously, the other party didn't know anything about the He family. Then there is no need to tell him. So, Chen Chen continued, I'm at Medina Hospital. Just come and see me. After saying that, he hung up the phone and walked straight to the lounge in the premium ward. Before entering the room, he said to Li Bang and Lin He, you guys just rest in the ward and I'll take turns watching over you. It's basically no problem. I'll go in and take a nap. Come in and wake me up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay? Clear. Li Bang and Lin He answered at the same time. But Lin He keenly noticed that his captain had a gloomy look on his face. After closing the door, Chen Chen did not rest. Because from the conversation with the Jackal just now, he suddenly understood something. Chasely didn't know about the He family, or they deliberately hid it from him. That is to say, Chasely at least didn't know what he knew about the He family. Indeed, at the Hongmen banquet, Chen Chen only mentioned a surname. It was based on his experience in his previous life that he guessed the relationship between that person and the 756th Brigade, and guessed the reason for the abnormal performance of the 756th Brigade in this mission. This also means that Chen Shinha, the Chen family, and the 7th Brigade may not know either. From their perspective, the only person the Dongfeng Corps could blame is the greedy 756th Brigade, not Chen Shinha, who did not participate in the mission at all. Or to put it more intuitively, that is, he has no motive to kill. The conclusion is already obvious. If you want to kill Chen Shinha, now is the best time. The sooner, the better. Since it was determined to kill Chen Shinha, Chen Chen did not plan to wait any longer. The longer you delay, the more suspicious you become and the more difficult it becomes. On the contrary, the best opportunity to take action is now, when his team members are seriously injured and hospitalized. He has just finished a high-intensity battle and is still more than 100 kilometers away from Mengka. Then, there was only one question left before him. Question: how can you avoid arousing suspicion after killing someone? There are 3 key points in total. First, there is no motivation. Second, no traces were left. Third, have sufficient alibi evidence. As for the motive, Chen Chen had already made a judgment from the Jackal's reaction. Although as long as Chen Shinho is dead, he will be suspected at any time and in any place. But at this point in time, my motives are actually relatively weak in the eyes of outsiders. As for traces, Chen Chen was confident that he would not leave any. In northern Myanmar, where there was almost no surveillance, he was not worried about being exposed. Therefore, the most crucial point lies in the alibi. And how can he prove that he was not in Mengka at all when Chen Chen had died? Things like bribing witnesses and falsifying surveillance are all fake. No matter how reasonable they seem, the Chen family will not believe them. The only evidence that forced them to agree was that he appeared in Mengbin in the shortest time after Chen Chen's death, in the most powerful and irrefutable way. The shortest here means that it is shorter than the time it takes to reach Mengbin from Mengka at maximum speed using various vehicles. To be precise, it should take at least 1 hour. This means that Chen Chen must return to Mengbin within an hour after killing Chen Shinha. To be honest, even if he drove the car into the air, it would be impossible for him to do it. This is absolutely an impossible task because this is a normal scientific world and no one can teleport. But it is precisely this kind of impossibility that is enough to create a perfect alibi for oneself. Chen Chen's brain was working rapidly, and within just 2 minutes, several plans had flashed through his mind, including helicopter evacuation, waterway evacuation, motorcycle racing, but without exception, all are unavailable. First of all, although there is a helicopter in Jingdong, east of Mengbin, it is too troublesome to use and too conspicuous. Once you sit on it, your body will be covered with yellow mud, which is equivalent to shit. If evacuated by water, although the distance can be much shorter, the whole journey is only about 90 kilometers, but the water volume of the Mekong River at this point in time is too small and the flow rate is too low, so there will not be enough time. As for motorcycle racing, it takes 140 kilometers from Mengyang Highway to Tongyi Road, and it is impossible to get back in an hour even if you step on the accelerator. This is a complete paradox and one of the most classic scenes in suspense detective novels. There are several standard solutions to create this scenario. A plan instantly came up in Chen Chen's mind, and then he selected the one with the strongest feasibility, the highest fault tolerance, and the most logical reasoning. It may not be perfect, but it's definitely worth a try. Please ask the Lion Corps to be the tools. Chen Chen is going to fight a surprise attack with no one present. The time was 3:06. Chen Chen's schedule was certainly not very tight, but in order to make the plot the most realistic this time, he planned to finish everything before 9 o'clock and then return to Mengbin and return to the hospital. He took off all his equipment, put on a mask, climbed out of the ward through the window, escaped from the Medina hospital building along the shadow of the wall, and reached the pickup truck he had driven back. Most of the weapons and equipment of the Dongfeng Corps, including the Line Corps, were still on the pickup truck. In addition to the M24 that Lin he picked up and had never been seen by any third party, there was also a 60 mortar, an old 40 rocket launcher, and a body that had not been dealt with in time. Among them, the most useful thing is the corpse, because he had a cell phone on him. Including my own, I have 2 mobile phones available in total. What Chen Chen needs to do is, of course, remotely control the trigger device, which is the key to his unmanned assault. He took the other person's phone, dialed a number on his own phone, and after confirming that it was available, he put it directly into his pocket. Then he moved the necessary equipment out of the parking lot and hid it in a corner of a wasteland. On the last trip, he took out the M24 from the pickup truck, wrapped it in cloth, then ran 200 meters west, followed the path on the side of the Mengbin post office, and found a motorcycle parked near the repair shop. There is an advertising slogan on the side of the car: "The speed of the ocean motorcycle." This thing is a domestic product, the legendary 125, and its anti-theft performance is extremely poor. Chen Chen quickly charged it, then pushed the car away from the first crime scene, kicked the motorcycle into flames, and rushed back to the vicinity of the hospital, where he tied up all the equipment wrapped in hospital sheets with tape. In fact, there are not many, just an RPG and a mortar. With all the equipment ready, Chen Chen rode his motorcycle out of Mengbin without stopping. His destination was Naong Village. He knew that the Lion Corps had not left yet, but had chosen to return to the village to temporarily station there. This is your chance. The distance of less than 10 kilometers was reached in almost an instant. After Chen Chen saw the lights of Naong Village from afar, he immediately turned off the motorcycle and moved all the equipment into an extremely desolate-looking orchard. At this time, the time has reached 3:40, and the remote control device must be set up as soon as possible. In the eyes of many people, IED, or roadside bombs, remote control bombs are very high-end things that can only be made by experts with advanced knowledge. But if you actually use your brain to imagine, can this thing really be high-end? Can it really be difficult? If it were really difficult, it wouldn't be so rampant in the Middle East, where the per capita education level is alarmingly low. Even though Chen Chen had not studied this thing specifically, he could still name more than 5 ways of remote control detonation. The simplest one is detonation by radio or cordless telephone. After disassembling the radio system of the walkie-talkie, you will get a common frequency system. Short-circuit one of them, and then install it on the bomb. Next, some unstable explosives that would burn when exposed to electric sparks were used as detonators to detonate other lethal explosives. In this way, the process of communication, short-circuit, spark, ignition of detonator, explosion of explosives can be realized. Of course, what Chen Chen is going to do now is not a remote control bomb, but just a simple excitation device for mortars and rockets. Therefore, he was too lazy to disassemble the phone, and instead performed an extremely simple, yet effective operation. Turn on the vibrate mode of the phone. Dominoes, there is no one who doesn't know how to play them, right? The tail of the mortar shell is inserted into the muzzle with calculated parameters and aimed, fixed with a simple fixing device composed of broken wood sticks and nylon rope, and then maintained in balance with a bow trap. Then, use earth blocks to build a small platform and place the mobile phone on the edge of the platform. After the call was connected, the phone vibrated and dropped from the platform, triggering the bow trap. The fixing device detached, the shell fell, and the firing was successful. The trace destruction device is a Type 82 defensive grenade that has its pin pulled out and the safety released, and is also controlled by a bow-shaped trap. At the moment the mortar is fired, the grenade will also fall to the ground. It will explode after a few seconds, completely erasing all traces. Following this method, Chen Chen also set up another RPG trap. In order to avoid unstable signals when using a satellite phone to make calls to mobile phones, he set alarms for both phones. If you really can't get through, just set the alarm to go off on time. Everything is ready. The time is 3:55. Chen Chen did not stay any longer, but got on his motorcycle and started speeding towards Jingdong. There is only one fastest route from Mengbin to Munka, which is to go east along Tongyi Highway to Jingdong, then turn north in Jingdong and go to Munka along Mingyang Highway. The road is about 140 kilometers long and is basically paved with asphalt. Even if there is a small section with poor road conditions in the middle, it will basically not affect the driving of vehicles. If it is a 4-wheel vehicle, it can basically arrive within 2 hours. If you use a motorcycle, it will only take 3 hours at most. It is now 4:05 in the morning, and Chen Chen is under a lot of time. The accelerator was turned to the bottom, and the speed reached an astonishing speed of 80 kilometers per hour. Fortunately, the road conditions were good at night, with very few vehicles, and Chen Chen basically did not encounter any accidents. It literally took him only 50 minutes to travel the 60 kilometers from Mengbin to Jingdong. Even he himself was surprised. The performance of these two 125 motorcycles could be said to have been squeezed dry by him. But to be honest, this is the advantage of domestic motorcycles. They are often durable and occasionally become stronger when facing strong opponents. After seeing the lights of Jingdong, he slowed down a little and drove to the outskirts of the city. This is a real city that is completely different from Mengbin and Munka. Although it is in northern Myanmar, its area still exceeds 50 square kilometers. It not only has commercial areas and airports, but also has suburban residential areas similar to China's urban villages around it. There is a mix of good and bad people here, and the public security is chaotic, but it is this chaotic public security that gave Chen Chen the opportunity. He first drove the 125 into the deep water of the Mekong River, and then stopped the hapless passing motorcycle gang on the outskirts of Jingdong. He generously helped test drive the gang's no-name 250 motorcycle, then kindly asked him to put down his cute 60-centimeter machete and borrowed his helmet. Before leaving, Chen Chen left behind a small stack of US dollars, a total of 2,000 US dollars, more than enough to buy a new 250 motorcycle. This was certainly not out of kindness. Really, in northern Myanmar, what good stuff can a guy driving a 250 scooter on the street in the middle of the night have? They all have something shady in their pockets. Chen Chen was merciful if he didn't kill him with a single shot. The reason why one does not kill anyone but gives money is just to minimize the risk as much as possible and avoid exposing one's whereabouts due to the other party's pursuit or tracking. So, after a short 2-minute rest, he got on his motorcycle again under the grateful eyes of the biker gang. Instead of going into the city, he bypassed Wanaping village on the west side of Jingdong and took a small road to Mingyang Highway. The time was 4:10, and he was still nearly 80 kilometers away from Munka. The most conservative estimate was that it would take about an hour and a half. However, considering that the speed of a 250 motorcycle was much faster than that of a 125, perhaps he could arrive in an hour. When he arrives in Munka, it will be around 5 in the morning. He had 50 minutes to prepare and observe, determine the sniper location, and plan the evacuation route. Around 6 o'clock is the window for action. At this point in time, Chen Chen would definitely take his private soldiers out for training exercises, and their route would pass through the entire main residential area of Munka. This kind of training used to bother Chen Chen. He really couldn't understand what the point of doing something that was more like a show than training was. But slowly, he understood Chen Chen's intention. Yes, Chen Chen is a stupid person, but he is really not a lazy person, let alone a stupid person. From the various human intelligence collected in the early stage, Chen Chen had already completed his profile. A naughty child who grew up under the shadow of his older brother, superstitious about force and power. His dream is to one day surpass his older brother and become the true representative of the Chen family in everyone's eyes. He made many attempts to achieve this goal, but each one ended in failure. Therefore, he could only vent his long-suppressed and distorted personality on women. But on the other hand, such venting still could not satisfy him. Essentially, he is still extremely insecure. So like his brother and all the warlords in northern Myanmar, he trained a private army of his own. His requirements for this private army were much stricter than those for the so-called alliance forces in the barracks. Everything was done according to the Chinese standards, including jogging, exercising, shooting, drills, and even the elite of Mugwe were invited to serve as instructors. Everything he did was to prepare for his own ascension to power one day. To be honest, at least in this aspect, he did a good job. On the other hand, he intentionally added a number of similar demonstration projects to the training subjects in order to enhance his reputation by constantly making his presence felt in front of the residents of Munka City and the major forces in Munka. If he can continue to do it steadily and steadily, perhaps his prestige will really continue to rise. Because Chen Chen had actually heard some rumors that Captain Chen's team is more capable and has stricter military discipline. Perhaps if time is extended a little longer, he can really win the hearts of the people and replace his brother, but he can't wait for that day. If he makes a mistake, he will die. This is the rule of this chaotic land, and also Chen Chen's rule. The motorcycle moved forward, and the fierce wind bypassed the lone rider on Mingyang Highway. Amid the roar of the engine, the knife hidden in the wind crossed a distance of 140 kilometers and fiercely chopped towards the damned man. At the same time, in Munka, in the barracks of the 7th Brigade, Chen Chen glared at Chen Chen angrily and asked sternly, "Why did you do this? Why did you betray the Dongfeng Corps? Do you know the consequences? Do you know how much damage would be done to us if the 756th Brigade failed to take over that woman in time? That's a battlefield. A battlefield. Do you understand? The Lion Army only wants that woman dead. They don't care about the consequences at all. And you actually want to take advantage of the opportunity to kill the only person who protected that woman. What on earth are you thinking about? Come on, tell me, what on earth do you want to do? You know we have reached a cooperation with Chasely, right? You know we can get benefits as long as that woman is alive, right? Are you brainless? What grudge do you have with them that is so big that you have to take action at this time?" Chen Chen did not say anything, but it was Battalion Commander Chen Jiashu, who was sitting nearby and was in charge of the Munka Security Brigade, who spoke. "Brother, don't be too angry. Sit down and talk. Chen has his reasons for doing this. The Dongfeng Corps rose too quickly. The more such characters there are, the more careful we have to be. Even if we can't get it into our own hands, at least we can't let others take it away. Once this mission is over, the Dongfeng Corps will completely belong to Chasely, which is actually very disadvantageous to us. On the one hand, they're indeed very strong and have greater development prospects. On the other hand, if such people skip over us and collude with a third party right in front of us, where will we put our face? At least they have to go through us first, right? This is what Shinha mentioned before. You can make friends, but you have to make our friends. So, it's not wrong for Shinha to want to kill them, but this method is indeed ill-considered." Having said that, Chen Chen finally had a way out. He raised his head and looked at Chen Yimin and said, "Brother, this time is my problem. I really didn't want Chaisley to get things off the ground. I thought this was an opportunity. I really didn't expect that they could defeat the Lion Army. This is simply impossible. But they did it. There are always some people and things in this world that cannot be inferred by common sense. You are so arbitrary. Why can't you discuss it with me?" Chen Yimin's words were full of disappointment, but his tone eventually softened. He sat next to Chen Shinha and said, "Your idea is right, your thinking is right, and even your decisive decision is right. But the problem is, your approach is wrong. You could just tell the 756th Brigade to let the Lion Corps kill the East Wind Corps, and the 756th Brigade can inherit their commission. Wouldn't they do it? Why do you have to tell them that he Wimping died in the sinking ship? Do you think they will believe it? Munka is our territory. Once this information gets out, at least your situation, will no longer be safe." Hearing this, Chen Chen shook his head and replied, I have no choice. Chasely has already paid enough money to the 756th Brigade. The talks can go on, so I threw out my trump card. If we can't continue the discussion, then don't talk about it. Is this the only chance we have to kill them? Garo has killed so many people, and their leader is still here. Isn't this an opportunity? The woman has been handed over, but who knows if the secret has been leaked? There will always be people who want to ask him. Isn't this an opportunity? Do you have to expose yourself to the 756th Brigade? Have you ever thought that they might want to kill you as well? No, he Wimping is just a foreigner after all. Who can say for sure? Chen Chen's words of defense were stuck in his mouth. In the end, he did not refute. He just lowered his head and said, I was wrong. I overestimated the Lion Corps and underestimated the sunken ship. You are wrong. Don't run around for the next few months. Just stay in the barracks. Wait until the storm has passed before you come out and do some activities again. Hearing this, Chen Chen opened his mouth and finally said, I'll go to the public security brigade. I'll live with my second brother. Then keep an eye on him, Chen Yimin said to Chen Jiashu. Don't worry, big brother, I'll take him back in a moment. It should be safe these few days. There's no way the 756th Brigade can move that fast. At 5:20 in the morning, Chen Chen arrived at the suburbs of Mungka. He was on a hillside on the east side of Mungka City, far away from Mungka City across the Mekong River. Directly in front of him was the Mungka Government Hospital, and in front of the government hospital was the only road from the Mungka military camp to Mungka City. Chen Chen's private soldiers pass through this road every day. This is information that Chen Chen has already mastered without the need for scouts. He buried himself deep in the grass and covered the scope with the gauze brought from the hospital. The gun in his hand is a standard model of M24, using Remington's Classic 5, our heavy barrel, and equipped with a 10x42 Leupold M3A Ultra Standard sight. The whole gun can be said to be authentic. The only change was in the bullet. The gunman did not use the regular M118 special bullet, but chose the M118 LR long-range bullet. Although this bullet reduced the muzzle velocity of the bullet to a certain extent, it can achieve greater stability and achieve higher accuracy at a distance of more than 600 meters. I have to say, this is really like thinking about my uncle from my mother's family and my pillow. Because now, Chen Chen is exactly 600 meters away from the target point. Of course, to most ordinary people, this distance is not that far. Especially in some blockbuster movies that specifically depict snipers, they can easily hit a can of Coke at a distance of 1,500 meters. Such cases sound very exaggerated and shocking, but in fact, they're also very unrealistic. Not to mention the optical distortion caused by the quality problems of the sight itself in complex environments, the Coriolis effect, the rotation of the Earth, alone can cause the bullet to deviate by thousands of miles. The difficulty of ballistic calculation does not increase linearly, but increases exponentially. For every 100 meters increase in distance, the average accuracy of the hit will drop by at least 10%. In fact, almost all sniper operations take place within 1,000 meters, and the distance of 400 to 800 meters covers almost all conventional sniper missions. Chen Chen's sniping this time was just a routine mission. He took out a telescope, carefully observed the direction of the military camp, and waited quietly. Although he had not yet fully recovered to his peak condition at this time, and although his last bit of physical strength had been almost drained after the long-distance run, his mental state became more stable at times like this. He carefully bit a small piece of flesh on the inside of his lip with the tip of his teeth, and the intense pain made him realize it instantly. Under constant stimulation, the sleepiness that had already surged gradually dissipated. The sky gradually brightened, but Chen Chen did not see the target he was expecting. But he was not in a hurry because this was not a must-do mission. Even if he didn't see Chen Chen this morning, it didn't matter. Just think of it as an extreme sprint training session for yourself. In fact, things did not develop smoothly. According to early intelligence, Chen Chen should have left the military camp before 6 o'clock and started training with his private soldiers. They will enter Mungka City after 6:10 and pass by the target point preset by Chen Chen. But now, the time has come to 6:15, but through the telescope, there is still no movement in the camp of the Mungka 7th Brigade stationed on the outskirts of the city. This is the situation that Chen Chen is most worried about. That is, after the other party is sensitive to the fact that the Lion Corps has been wiped out by his side and his plan has failed, he immediately chooses to shrink back, no longer making any risky moves and no longer having any contact with the outside world. Wait until the storm has passed. All matters have been settled, and all risks have been eliminated before you can show up in public. If this is true, then I might really return empty-handed. Chen Chen couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't want to lose this excellent window of time. You know, if he really continues to wait until this matter is completely over, he will be much more suspicious if he wants to kill Chen Chen again. Because by that time, they must have reached a settlement with the 756th Brigade on the matter of the He family. After eliminating one of the two biggest suspects, who should the focus of the investigation be placed on? Damn, I can't be so unlucky, right? Chen Chen slowly swallowed the blood foam in his mouth and blinked his sore eyes hard, but at this moment, the movement he had been waiting for a long time finally appeared. Although it was impossible to distinguish human faces at a distance of nearly 2 kilometers, judging from the color of the military uniform, Chen Chen finally appeared. He did not bring any private soldiers with him. Following him was a man whom Chen Chen was not familiar with, but whose face and features he remembered. A big fat man, the head of the Mungka Security Brigade, Battalion Commander Chen Jiashu. The two boarded the Toyota Land Cruiser that was waiting nearby and sat in the back seat. Afterwards, the car drove all the way to Mungka City. But new problems arise. Judging from the opponent's speed and current route, Chen Chen has actually lost the firing window. He sighed softly, planning to put away his gun and leave once the vehicle was out of his sight. However, the luck factor, which which had not appeared since the beginning of the escort operation, finally stood on his side. The Land Cruiser drove to the east side of the government hospital, made a big circle, and turned in the direction of the so-called City Hall. Chen Chen finally knew what they were going to do. The two men were planning to go to Chen Jiashu's office, or rather, the headquarters of the Public Security Brigade. He swallowed a mouthful of blood foam again, then carefully turned the muzzle of the gun, pointed the telescope at the entrance of the Public Security Brigade, and completed a quick laser ranging. The straight line distance is 510 meters, which is 100 meters closer than the original sniper position. Do not underestimate the distance of 100 meters, because if Chen Chen still aims according to the 600-meter scale, the bullet he fired at the chest will fly directly over the target's head at least 1 meter in the air. The Land Cruiser stopped, and Chen Chen aimed at the side door of the vehicle. Chen Chen did not get out of the car immediately. Instead, he lowered the window and talked to the security guard who ran to the front of the car. Chen Chen couldn't see his mouth shape clearly, nor could he guess what he was saying, but that didn't matter. Breathe in and exhale slowly. His fingers pressed down gently, as if he was touching his lover's skin. In the back seat of the Land Cruiser, Chen Chen looked at the guard in front of him impatiently and said, "Is it so troublesome to ask you to bring the person to me? Your Captain Chen is here. Doesn't it mean that what he said is still useless?" The guard he reprimanded stood there trembling with fear and replied, "Captain Chen, it's not a bother. I mean, you'd better give me a token, otherwise I can't enter your house. You can't even say my name?" Chen Chen's tone became heavier. Chen Jiashu beside him patted his arm and advised, "Brother, don't be so angry. Isn't it just a few words from my elder brother? What's the big deal? You can see it. In fact, Big Brother is very satisfied with you this time. It's just that you didn't do well enough, so I asked you to polish it more. Okay, don't embarrass a little soldier like me. Let's go in first. I'll bring the person to you in person later. Don't worry, I'm not in a military camp here. No one will interfere with your behavior." Hearing what Chen Jiashu said, Chen Chen couldn't help but sigh. He shook his head and replied, "Second brother, you don't need to persuade me. I know it in my heart, I just can't get over it. He has always been better than me since I was a child. I don't know when I can make him take notice of me. You have impressed him this time." Chen Jiashu smiled and lowered his voice and said, "Before leaving, my eldest brother told me to come out and praise you. After all, he is the eldest brother and has the same temper as dad. When have you ever seen him say anything nice? So, don't fight with him. Let's go home." After these two sentences, Chen Chen's unhappiness finally dissipated. He nodded, pulled out a pistol from his waist, and handed it to the guard outside the window, saying, "Take my gun and lead the people. Don't blame me for getting angry. You're working for your battalion commander, but you don't know how to be smart." This sentence obviously let the soldier go, and the latter gratefully took the pistol with both hands and was about to stand at attention and salute Chen Chen to say goodbye. But at this moment, an incredible scene suddenly appeared in front of him. Chen Chen's face suddenly exploded. Blood spurted all over the guard. He stood there in a daze, looking at the gun in his hand. Go! Accidental discharge? Boundless fear instantly overwhelmed him. Within a second, his eyes went dark and he fainted on the ground. But he didn't hear the gunshot coming from afar, nor could they see the countless birds flying in the forest startled by the gunshots. The evacuation route had been prepared long ago and was chosen on the south bank of the Mekong River, so there was no need to pass through the Nam Loc Bridge, which was the most easily blocked. Drive directly on the road, bypass Quokka Village in the south of Munka City, speed along the small road to Bantang Village, and then from Banang to Wanshi, take the village road on the east side of Wanshi to Mingyang Highway. This route takes 5 minutes longer than going directly to Mingyang Highway, but the safety is more than doubled when passing Wanshi Village. Chen Chen made a new discovery. All the poppies have been eradicated, leaving only bare ground. Perhaps in the spring of next year, rice will be planted here that can truly nourish the body and soul. Speaking of which, Chen Chen did have a share of the credit for the destruction of the cancer in Wanshi Village. Although he did not participate, he did provide himself with shelter at the time. But so what? This is a world of contradictions, and northern Myanmar is an even more contradictory land. Every person is a collection of contradictions, and when the negative overwhelms the positive, death is not far away. Chen Chen didn't think much and rushed all the way to Jingdong. He fired the shot at 6:25, and at 7:15 he had arrived at Wazong Village, 70 kilometers from Munka and 10 kilometers from Jingdong. Theoretically, he was only 1 hour away from Mengbin. So, without any hesitation, he found an open and high point and dialed the phone number he had memorized long ago. The call was connected, but then it was hung up abruptly. Chen Chen knew that this just proved that the remote control trigger device he had set up had taken effect. He stepped on the accelerator to the floor and continued to drive as the road conditions were excellent. 10 minutes later, he bypassed Jingdong and got on Tangi Avenue. He dialed the second number and then moved on. At 8:25, Chen Chen arrived near Naong Village. He first found a hidden ditch and threw the M24 into it. Then he ran headlong into the Lion Corps mercenaries who were searching wildly. The enemy was obviously stunned by the two inexplicable shells. Even after they found Chen Chen, they did not shoot at the first time. Instead, they thought Chen Chen was a farmer working early in the morning until Chen Chen raised the 416 Hong Kong dollars at them. They will never forget this gun or the man who used it. Fear instantly surged into their hearts, and they subconsciously pulled the trigger. But their movements were more than a beat slower than Chen Chen's. A long burst of fire swept across, and the two enemies fell to the ground instantly. Chen Chen knew that most of the bullets hit their third-level bulletproof vests, and the two men were unlikely to die. At least not in a short period of time. But this is the effect he wants. The motorcycle suddenly turned, and then sped away in the direction of Mengbin. There was a burst of gunfire behind him, and Chen Chen lowered his body. This was the most dangerous moment, because he was not wearing a bulletproof vest. Fortunately, With the help of the fruit forest blocking his vision, he successfully avoided the pursuit. At 8:50, Chen Chen returned to Medina Hospital and climbed over the wall into the ward. 10 minutes later, Linny opened the door and looked at him with complicated eyes, who was lying on the bed with his eyes open. Then he said, "Captain, is it time to get up?" A few minutes later, Chen Chen received a call from Jackal, and the other party's tone was extremely serious. "Shipwreck, tell me you are at Medina Hospital." Through his tone, Chen Chen fully felt his worry. The man opposite was probably very afraid that the shot was fired by himself, and he was also very afraid that he would inexplicably appear in Munka instead of Medina Hospital. There are many reasons and sources for this worry, but it is undeniable that at this moment, the Jackal is really thinking about himself. The bad news is that he guessed right. The good news is he just guessed right. So Chen Chen replied, "I'm at Medina Hospital. What's wrong? Something bad has happened. Are you sure you are in Mengbin, not Minka? That I can have the doctor talk to you. I've been sleeping. I just came out of the jungle, and my body is already at its limit. So what's wrong?" Chen Chen's tone revealed a bit of confusion, a bit of worry, and even a hint of irritability from having his sleep disturbed. His acting skills could be said to be quite good, but unfortunately, the Jackal was not fooled. However, even so, the Jackal breathed a sigh of relief. On the phone, his voice relaxed a little, and then he sternly rebuked, "Shipwreck, do you know what you are doing? The mission is over. Why did you attack the Lion Army?" "No, I really was sleeping the whole time. You can check with the doctor." "Do you think I'm an idiot? I already got the intel on the Lion Regiment. You blew them up with their cannons and injured 2 people with your iconic 416 Hong Kong dollars. Do you think they can't recognize your gun? Where the gun is, that's where you are. Can't you just change your gun? And can't you change your damn hairstyle and change your damn clothes? Do you think that they won't recognize you just by covering your face? No, you can't be that stupid. You just don't care. It's a good idea to attack while everyone's defenses are down, but why? Tell me." Chen Chen let out a long sigh. "I just want to kill their leader. The casualties I caused to them are too great. This mercenary group may be disbanded. I'm worried that they'll go on a final rampage before disbanding and take revenge on us while we're weak. Instead of that, I might as well take action first and defeat their leader. Unfortunately, they're very cautious. I hid for a long time and created a lot of chaos, but I didn't see the leader show up at all. A very good reason." At this moment, Chen Chen's tone was like a child who was caught for doing something wrong due to a momentary misjudgment. "You are too cautious. I've said it before. You are always too cautious." The Jackal on the opposite side said viciously. But before Chen Chen could answer, he said a fact that Chen Chen didn't know yet. "Of course the leader of the Lion Army won't show up. He died a long time ago. Didn't anyone tell you?" "Who told me? Your team members don't know either? That I really don't know? At least, you haven't told me yet. Besides, you didn't tell me either." This time, Chen Chen did not lie. Sure Dukai went into the operating room as soon as he arrived at the hospital. He had just woken up for a few minutes. How could he tell him this crucial information? But of course, from the previous chaotic command of the Lion Corps, Chen Chen had actually guessed it, but he just couldn't confirm it. "That's so you mean this is still my fault?" The Jackal's voice became somewhat helpless. "Mr. Jackal, putting aside the facts and the results, aren't you right? Okay, good. It has already happened. Find a way to make amends. At least this incident is not all bad. I really don't know what to say to you. Your caution saved your life, but in a way you never expected." "What method?" Chen Chen asked with pretended curiosity. "Chen Chenha is dead. When he died, you happened to be fighting the Lion Corps, which eliminated you as a suspect. Otherwise, you will become their main focus no matter what." "Chen Chenha? Why? How could he die?" Chen Chen was horrified. No one knows that just after 6 o'clock this morning, he was shot in the head by a 7.62 by 51mm bullet fired from an M24. Let me confirm again. You don't have an M24, right? Or at least you didn't pick it up, right? "No, we don't need this gun either. The Lion Corps has it, but I didn't pick it up. I picked up the M82A1 instead." "That's good. Anyway, he was killed." The Jackal sighed and continued. "Maybe it's the 756th Brigade, maybe it's the Lion Corps, maybe it's any other warlord who wants to take the top position. But fortunately, it's not you. Why me? I have no reason to kill him. He and I have always gotten along well? Okay." Chen Chen once again used words to reinforce his innocence. "Stop making up stories. You two just don't have any grudges against each other. That's not how you get along well. Okay, go and rest. I have to go help you deal with the mess of the Lion Corps. You blew up 4 people and injured 2. I can treat it as an accident, but the money will be deducted from your 500,000. The maximum deduction is 50,000. 200,000. 60,000. Get lost." With a click, the phone was hung up. Chen Chen looked at the other 4 people in the ward and spread his hands helplessly. No one in the Dongfeng Corps is stupid. Li Bang, Bao Qi, and Shi Dakai knew about the He family, and Linny picked up the M24 himself. But they all knew what to do. The 5 of them stared at each other for more than 10 seconds, and then Shi Dakai suddenly asked, "Has the car been dealt with?" "It sank into the river. Have you cleaned up the traces?" "It must be clean. You didn't go get gas?" "No." "What about fingerprints?" "I wore gloves." "That's great for the last point. How on earth do you operate the attack remotely?" Hearing his words, Chen Chen smiled slightly, and then replied, "This is an advanced tutorial. It's paid." "No, I'll teach you when you get better." After hanging up the phone with Jackal, Chen Chen immediately received another call from Peng Shuqing. He repeated the same words again, of course, without being clever by deleting or adding any details. Because he knows that the more he talks, the more mistakes he makes. In this situation, the best way to deal with it is to stick to an established fact and then give the same answer no matter how others ask. This is the most basic technique in anti-interrogation strategy. He cannot say that he has mastered it by heart, but it should be said that it has become an instinct. Therefore, after his almost perfect answer, both Jackal and Peng Shuqing basically believed his statement. Peng Shuqing even mentioned that he should take this opportunity to try to deepen his ties with Chen Yimin and the 7th Brigade. How to deepen? Find the murderer and avenge Chen Chen. Well, for Chen Chen, this was indeed a difficult task, so the difficulty he showed was not fake at all, but it was this difficulty that made his words more credible. After all, if Chen Chen couldn't wait to do something to clear himself of suspicion, then maybe he would really be making things more obvious. When everything was done, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning. Only then could Chen Chen finally take a rest. He lay comfortably on the bed without sheets and slept for a full 5 hours. When he woke up and walked out of the lounge, Lin He and Li Bang were already lying on the floor asleep. Bao Qi, who had slightly stronger mobility, was on guard in the ward. How are you? Are you feeling better? Chen Chen asked. Much better. The wound hurts a lot, and the effect of the painkillers is worn off, but it's not a big problem. I can handle it. There was a unique look of determination on Bao Qi's face, which was the kind of spirit that could only be possessed after truly experiencing the test of life and death. This battle was indeed a worthwhile one. Jackal had said before that the Dongfeng core was a sharp, crisp knife. Now, after a really tough battle, the core had finally tempered itself and had the required toughness. Of course, more important than the skills tempered by bullets, artillery fire, and blood was their spirit. The whole world is your enemy, but your spirit is invincible. What was the Dongfeng Corps like a few months ago? They were cannon fodder for the Kokong allied forces. Useless people who only thought about escaping after being besieged. Weaklings who thought they were lucky even if they won a battle, and didn't know what to do without Chen Chen. But what about now? They destroyed the Piaoying, subdued Ga Yaozi, killed the leader of the Lion Corps, and caused nearly 50% of their personnel losses. The most important thing was that the poisonous snake that wanted to bite them to death was shot down with a single shot. This was their first encounter with the strong men in this land, and they won a great victory. Injury? What does that mean? The meaning of victory and the desire for victory have taken root in everyone's heart. This is why, in the most dangerous situation, Bao Qi could rely on a PKM to hold back the attack of the enemy from Naong village. This is why, when Shi Dakai was seriously injured, he took the initiative to let others leave him behind and go first. This is also why, after hearing Chen Chen's order, Li Bang would sit in the most dangerous driver's seat without hesitation and go to save people without hesitation. If the Dongfeng Corps was just an armed group, no matter how strong it was before, then now the flag of this team has been truly raised. Chen Chen looked at Bao Qi's face and suddenly laughed. You fought really well this time. Although your marksmanship hasn't reached a very strong level, you fought every battle very smartly. I also noticed your fighting style when I was on the battlefield. You were very decisive and accurate in choosing target priorities. You looked like an elite soldier. Not good enough? Bao Qi chuckled, paused briefly, and then suddenly asked, Brother Chen, when we came back from Menglang Zen Temple, you said we should grow through fighting. So, I did pretty well, didn't I? Very nice, Chen Chen said sincerely. This is not some insincere consolation or compliment, but Bao Qi's performance is indeed worthy of his status as the core support player of the team. I'll do better next time, Bao Qi said solemnly. Certainly, but you have to recover quickly. Just rest for the next 1 or 2 months. We shouldn't take any more missions in the short term. We should digest the results of this mission first. $500,000? Bao Qi asked subconsciously. That's the least valuable thing. Chen Chen shook his head and explained. Although our mission was a package deal, we did encounter additional risks due to Chasley's intelligence errors. In this case, I must knock the jackal until it bleeds, right? Humph, he's still talking about deducting my money. I want to see if he dares to do so. Hearing his words, Bao Qi nodded thoughtfully, and then said, They have no reason to deduct our money. Jackal. I can tell from his tone that they just want to take advantage of us. I mean, verbally. Why do you sound so wrong to me? Bao Qi samai akwadili. That's not what I meant. What I meant was that we have exceeded our mission this time. He should have given us what he promised, right? No. Weapons, equipment, status, and endorsements for us. We will have them all. Chen Chen's voice lowered. He did not talk more about this topic, but walked over to Li Bang and Lin He, woke them up, and asked them to go to the lounge to sleep. The two of them had indeed reached their limit, so they didn't bother to be polite with Chen Chen. After all, the two most important principles they learned from Chen Chen in the Dongfeng Corps were to stick to their responsibilities and to believe in their comrades. Fight when you need to fight, sleep when you need to sleep. It's simple, but it is the basis that allows them to recover their combat effectiveness as quickly as possible. After the two fell asleep, Chen Chen let Bao Qi and Shi Dakai continue to rest, and he took on the responsibility of vigilance. During this time, the doctor and the nurse came to change Shi Dakai's medicine. Chen Chen asked him with some concern, How serious is the patient's condition? The doctor's answer was, It's about the same as using a banana machete to perform an appendectomy. In other words, although the wound is deep and the injured area is large, it can still be recovered after all. Chen Chen finally felt relieved. The newly trained soldiers will definitely not die halfway. Accompanying the soldiers in the ward is actually a very boring job. In order not to affect other people's rest, Chen Chen can only watch the silent version of TV. There were no smartphones in those days, so it was completely impossible to watch a short video of a beautiful woman stretching her legs. There was really nothing to do, so he even read the instruction manual of the adjustable bed in the ward twice. He was just about to drive Bao Qi off the bed so that he could try to disassemble it himself. It was not until 6 o'clock in the afternoon that the hospital sent someone to deliver dinner to the patients in the VIP ward. Along with dinner, there were also a few uninvited guests. Chen Chen didn't know all of them, but he recognized the one leading the way in front, the leader of the Special Operations Brigade. His hands were placed vigilantly on his waist. Bao Qi on the hospital bed also silently raised the backrest and reached his right hand into the sheets. Hidden there was a desert eagle that he never left behind. The leader obviously noticed their actions, so he quickly said, "Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We mean no harm. This is Staff Officer Zhu from the 756th Brigade, Zhu Qixing. He heard that one of your men was injured, so he came to see you. Of course, this is also to express our apologies for not acting in time. There was indeed a special operation last night, and there was a small-scale riot in Mengbin City. We had to ensure the safety of the city first. I totally understand." Chen Chen answered with a smile, but his hand did not leave the holster at his waist. At this time, the so-called chief of staff, Zhu, also stepped forward and extended his hand to Chen Chen. "Mr. Sinking Ship, there's no need to be so sensitive, right? We are not enemies. Haven't all your enemies been defeated?" Zhu Qixing's words were meaningful. Chen Chen calmly held his hand and replied, "The Lion Army is not so easy to defeat, but at least their leader is dead, which is good news for us. In the short term, we no longer have to worry about fighting them alone." There was sarcasm in the words of both men, and Chen Chen really couldn't show much good face to the representative of the force that once wanted to kill him. However, he still carefully avoided questions about the so-called enemies and was not lured out by Zhu Qixing's temptation. A hint of confusion flashed across the latter's eyes, but he quickly adjusted himself. He sat down beside the bed and peeled an apple with a fruit knife on the table. He said, "No matter what, we should apologize to you. Of course, we should also apologize to the Chazli group. Because of our mistakes, this operation has fallen into danger. We will take responsibility for this no matter what. And since I'm here, I must be here with sincerity. Mr. Sinking Ship, let's be frank. We will give you $100,000 to compensate you for your losses as a disability pension, and we will also cover the medical expenses of your team members." As soon as these words came out, Chen Chen was shocked. $100,000 is not a small number. To be precise, in this poor place in northern Myanmar, a disability pension of $100,000 is already an unprecedentedly high price. Normally, this amount of money is enough to pay the families of 10 mercenaries who died in battle. What is this guy up to? Chen Chen didn't think that he could get such preferential treatment from the regular army just because he fought a few battles and destroyed a few mercenary groups, because no matter how strong the mercenaries were, they were just mercenaries in their eyes and could not be considered presentable. There is a scenario where he would bow down and worship, but it would definitely not happen to him, and certainly not at this time. So he did not nod, but asked in return, "It seems that Chief of Staff Zhu needs my assistance with something? Mr. Shipwreck is indeed a smart man." Zhu Qixing smiled and nodded, threw the whole peel into the trash can, then put the peeled apple on the plate with the fruit knife stuck straight on it. "Then I'll just say it straight. Regarding the cargo you were escorting, the woman named Jia, she provided us with some information that is completely unrelated to what we already know, but is very useful to us. Based on the importance of this information, the 756th Brigade has decided to keep her in Mengbin for a period of time, at least until we can find out the authenticity of the information and find a solution, and then hand her over to the Thai side. But you know, the Thais wanted her very urgently, and Chaisri urged us to do the same, so we were under a lot of pressure. And it just so happens, Mr. Sinking Ship, that you have a close relationship with Chaisli. So, we hope you can be the middleman to assist us in negotiating with Chaisli and help us buy more time. The specific goal is 2 weeks. As long as Chaisli agrees to keep the woman in Mengbin for 2 more weeks, our goal will be achieved, and you can also get a generous gesture of sincerity from us. Of course, if you can use your full capabilities and extend the time to more than 2 weeks, we will pay more for each additional day. Isn't this a good deal? Our offer is $10,000 per day. Mr. Sinking Ship, would you like to consider it?" Chen Chen looked at Zhu Qixing with a frown. He did not accept it immediately, but of course did not refuse it immediately either. He had already guessed that the 756th Brigade would find a way to keep Jia, because the information in Jia's hands was too tempting for them. But he didn't expect that the other party would want to achieve his goal in this way. When did Chaisli become so powerful? No, they are not afraid of Chaisli, they are afraid of Thailand. Mediation? This sounds good, but to put it bluntly, isn't it just looking for someone to take the blame? Do you really think that if someone says a few good words to Chaisli and the Thais, they will be helpful and postpone the handover time? You can tell with your toes that they must have created a strong enough reason. No matter whether the reason is kidnapping, injury, or some nonsense, someone has to make this matter a reality and use it as a bargaining chip to negotiate with Chaisli. And the person who implements this matter will bear all the risks. So funny. They don't dare to offend the Thai side, so they want to be the first to do so. This is a very clever plan. Even the masters in Bangkok can hear them saying, "I don't accept it." Chen Chen answered without hesitation. "My mission has been completed. Everything that happens afterwards has nothing to do with me. The price could be doubled." Zhu Qixing immediately said, "I know it's risky, but it's worth it, isn't it? Thai people follow rules. They won't go crazy and try something. What's wrong with that? I can't do it. I only have one person available to me right now. How can I do it?" "Chief of Staff Zhu, you're asking too much." "Understood." Zhu Qixing sighed and continued. "But no matter what, this is just the first communication between the two of us. I believe that the decision you make at this time cannot represent the final decision. Remember my phone number, we will meet again, and I hope that by then, we can reach a pleasant consensus." After saying that, Zhu Qixing stood up. He casually threw the apple and the fruit knife on the table into the trash can. His movements were very natural, as if it was just an insignificant piece of trash. Chen Chen's eyes narrowed, but he didn't say anything in the end. He watched Zhu Qixing leave, and then immediately called Jackal. "Jackal, I have an important piece of information to sell you. It's very important. I'm sure you'll be interested. No, 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 I won't charge you this time. That's right, not a penny. Of course, if you must express your gratitude. You have a set of radio listening equipment, right? No, no, why would I want to take it for free? I just want to borrow it for a while. Don't be so stingy. So what you mean is that Jia still has information in her hands, and now she wants to use this information to buy time with the 756th Brigade? On the other end of the line, Jackal sounded a little confused. He obviously did not expect that this woman who seemed harmless and innocent at the beginning would hide her secrets so deeply that even when things had developed to this point, she could still seize the slim and almost non-existent chance of survival. Such people are scary, but also respectable. That's right. This information has nothing to do with what you are dealing with. It can't be said that it is completely unrelated. It should be said that it is an aftermath of the Kayamori incident. This aftermath has become completely independent after it was separated from the big hand that created the wave. Compared to your fight for the throne, it can be said to be a small matter. But if this small matter falls into the hands of the 756th Brigade, it can promote some big things they want to promote. That's why they just said to delay the handover. Because there is really no conflict of interest between them and you, but they just need Jia to die later so that they can get useful information. Well, this information is very useful, right? Is it worth /PRD 13 listening system? Hearing Chen Chen's words, Jackal sighed helplessly and then said, /PRD 13? Go grab it in Iraq. There are plenty of them among the American soldiers there. We only use the French-made Thales TRC 4000 series, okay? Wait, you've got me in a trap again. I never agreed to lend it to you. You just agreed. The call is recorded. Please watch your words. Chen Chen said seriously. Stop talking about these useless things. You have to tell me what information Jia has. Only when I know the specific situation can I decide whether to report to the headquarters or cooperate with the 756th Brigade. I'm not afraid to tell you that this operation was originally scheduled to be completed within 3 months, but you set off after less than 2 months of preparation. We originally had 1 month left. If Jia's information is truly independent and does not affect the overall situation, then maybe we can really give it a try. Of course, that's on the premise that the 756th Brigade doesn't kill her. Why would you take this risk? Wouldn't it be better to just send her back to Thailand? Chen Chen asked doubtfully. In his opinion, the 756th Brigade could only provide some economic benefits to Chastely. As for wealth, who could be richer than Chastely? Do they still care about this? We are arms dealers, Mr. Sinking Ship. Arms dealers need broad relationships. No matter what frictions have occurred, as long as it can bring us benefits, we will cooperate. The Shan State Army South has always been a breakthrough we wanted to open, and our relationship with them has been stagnant for more than a year. Not bad, of course, but not great either, which is why you will be betrayed during the operation. They fear us and respect us, but they never regard us as a truly reliable partner. And now, if there is really an opportunity, why don't we try it and take the relationship here a step further? Understood. Chen Chen answered thoughtfully. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the Jackal was indeed not as simple as he occasionally appeared to be. On the contrary, he is very thoughtful and extremely perceptive. Although he did not have the same omniscient information as himself, he still saw opportunities through clues and relied on his intuition. And this opportunity, just as the Jackal said, could really be utilized to allow Chastely to gain a foothold in the huge market of northern Myanmar. Once the secrets of the 505th Brigade were exposed and the SA started fighting with the Burmese army, would Chai Sri still be worried that he would not be able to sell the arms? The 756th Brigade will definitely give priority to the reliable partner who will bring endless profits to Chastely. Everything is so reasonable and transparent. So the question now is whether or not to share the information he has with the Jackal and then give the money, and so on. Why not? Chen Chen suddenly realized that he was caught in a vicious circle. I always think that in order to gain benefits, I must personally participate and bear the consequences. This is typical mercenary thinking. But the problem now is that as soon as I tell him about Jia's situation, whether it can be successful and how to deal with it will be entirely a matter between Hu Lang and Zhu Qixing and has nothing to do with me. If Jackal thinks it's feasible, he will tell Zhu Qixing. If not, then forget it. There's an information gap here. That is, Zhu Qixing did not know that Chastely still had 1 month left, so he thought that some special means must be used to achieve the goal. His judgment almost led Chen Chen into trouble, but in fact, the situation was not like that at all. It's just a matter of words. It's just a piece of information, a piece of intelligence. Have you ever seen an intelligence dealer who needs to charge in a battle and take risks? Isn't it that you can make money just by sitting there and talking on the phone? Damn, I almost missed out on a huge fortune. Thinking of this, Chen Chen immediately said, I can tell you, but I really need a set of listening systems. This is very important to us now. We desperately need to expand our electronic warfare capabilities. With this thing, the Lion Corps' ambush wouldn't have been possible. But if the information is useful, I will give it to you. The Jackal answered helplessly, but then he added, if you just make up some random information to fool me, you're dead. Do I look like that kind of person? Chen Chen's tone was full of innocence. Although I asked for a high price, I will definitely not cheat you. By the way, in addition to the interception system, you must find me 2 ballistic calculators, the same as the US military's. It would be even better if there is a matching CDA. Do you want a drone? A Predator type? May I? Okay, I'll give you another 100 Hellfire missiles, 2 100,000-ton aircraft carrier fleets, 1,000 F-22s, and 3 nuclear briefcases. How about that? Are you kidding me? You were the one who joked first. The CDA in active service in the US military. Do you know what level of equipment this is? Where can I find it for you? Are you really going to go to Iraq to steal it? The Jackal was a little agitated, so Chen Chen had no choice but to say sympathetically, okay, forget it. It's not your fault. Don't be sad. All I need is a ballistic calculator. That shouldn't be that hard, right? Yes, it's not my fault. The jackal pouted and continued. The Vectronix Vector Rangefinder Pro version has a ballistic calculation function and can input bullet and gun data by itself. Is it enough for you? That's enough. Then tell me the information quickly. After getting the confirmation from the jackal, Chen Chen finally stopped keeping the secret and said directly, the 505th Brigade of the SSAS is selling macadamia nuts. They used the macadamia nuts to exchange for some of the equipment your people looted from Chiang Sain and transported it to Tachalike. The message was clear, and a smart man like the jackal naturally understood its true meaning immediately. The unhappiness of being ruthlessly slaughtered by Chen Chen disappeared instantly. He asked with half surprise and half astonishment, how could this be? Is the news reliable? It's 100% reliable. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence to support it, isn't it? Indeed. This is great. With this trend in mind, even expanding relationships can be put second. Anyway, as long as we can fight, it will be good for us. The jackal hesitated for a moment, then asked, but you should at least tell me where this information came from? How do you know things that we haven't asked about? But it's magic, Chen Chen replied. Of course, there are no homophonic puns for sleeping clothes and persuading in English, but Chen Chen accidentally used the word enchant, and jackal immediately grasped the point. In the jungle? In front of other people? Do you think it's possible? I just talked to her. She wanted to recruit me to mess up Shan's state. Honestly, she should have cooperated with you guys. Maybe she would have had a chance to survive. It's impossible. The interests of Shan's state cannot compare with the temptation of the throne. The jackal regained his composure, paused for a moment, and then suddenly said, tell your contact to come and talk to me in person. You don't need to get involved in what happens next. Don't get dragged down by the 756th Brigade. They're not good people. I understand. Don't tell him you know about the 505th Brigade. Chen Chen nodded seriously, listening to Jackal's sincere advice. He even felt a little ashamed that he had asked for too high a price. After confirming a few details again, Chen Chen hung up the phone. Then he picked up the note left by Zhu Qixing from the table next to the bed and called without hesitation. I am a wreck. $30,000 a day for 3 weeks. How about that? Zhu Qixing on the opposite side was greatly surprised, because at this moment, he had just left the parking lot of Medina Hospital. You changed your mind so quickly? Then why were you so reserved just now? It seems that this sunken ship is indeed the same as what the intelligence said. It is really cautious. After deliberately pausing for a moment, Zhu Qixing said, 25,000 US dollars. This is the upper limit price. It can't be higher. Make a deal. Chen Chen did not hesitate and continued. Send the cash, and we can start cooperation now. No problem. Give me 20 minutes. Do you need me to go in person? No need. You will get a satisfactory answer after you see the money. After hanging up the phone, Chen Chen sat down on the chair with a happy face. Bao Qi and Shi Dakai, who were lying on the hospital bed, looked at him in bewilderment, not understanding for a moment what this man was so happy about. But they soon found out, because a full box containing 530,000 US dollars was delivered to them. Well, they still gave us 5,000. Chen Chen counted the money with satisfaction, then called Zhu Qixing and gave him Jackal's number. A few minutes later, the two sides reached an agreement, and the jackal said shamelessly, I refuse to answer any questions, but I cherish the relationship with the 756th Brigade, which directly blocked Zhu Qixing's way to find the truth. In fact, Zhu Qixing didn't care what method Chen Chen used. As long as the person stayed, it was fine. In just half an hour, everything was done. The people from the 756th Brigade left, and Chen Chen happily poured out all the green US dollars. The banknotes were pressed on the quilt that Shi Dakai was covering himself with, covering the entire bed. This money came too fast. Otherwise, why do we always say that information is valuable? It is really valuable. Watching his actions, Shi Dakai, who was pressed down, couldn't help but ask, Captain, what's going on with this money? I sold the jackal a piece of information, and then sold the jackal to the 756th Brigade. In short, I became an information dealer. Can a piece of information be worth so much money? Shi Dakai was stunned. Of course, small intelligence can influence the direction of a war, and medium intelligence can determine life and death. Intelligence like this will affect the life trajectories of many people and the development of this large piece of land and city. I think 530,000 is too little. 530,000 is not enough. Shi Dakai looked at Chen Chen with envy and couldn't help thinking secretly in his heart, it's good to have brains. You can make so much money without fighting. It seems that I have to learn from Chen Chen in the future and not be a soldier who only knows how to fight. Maybe one day, I will be able to make money in this way. Just when he was occupied by this thought, Chen Chen suddenly spoke again. A total of 530,000 US dollars, 100,000 for operating expenses, and the remaining 430,000 you each get 20,000. And I'll take 350,000. Although this information is not directly related to you, you have created the conditions for its acquisition. So, let's give everyone a little bit. It's just a free benefit. Huh? Do we have that too? Bao Qi asked in surprise. Have. Don't worry, you guys are doing it in a reasonable way. The artificial intelligence you did before also contributed to this main intelligence. Chen Chen did not lie. All the messy information from the early investigation was finally summarized here by him, which also provided some help for him to recover the information in his memory. Therefore, giving a share to others is not charity, but fair distribution. As for Lenny, he has no savings, so this little money can be considered as the cost of winning people's hearts. That's good. Shi Dakai and Bao Qi both breathed a sigh of relief. Of course they want money, but rules are rules, and they can't take Chen Chen's money for free. Being clear about these things will not only not affect the relationship between the people, but will make the relationship more stable. Chen Chen put the money on the bed back together, secretly calculating the benefits of this mission. The 1.03 million US dollars is definitely in your hands, and there will be discounts on future equipment purchases from Chase, plus a radio listening device and 2 ballistic calculators. This time I really made a lot of money. It was a perfect mission. Except Chen Chen. The only risk point lies with him. Although the person is dead, I still have to find a way to deal with the Myanmar 7th Brigade. However, this matter needs to be left alone for a while. Don't appear to be too eager or too obvious. The impact of Chen Chen's death would definitely not disappear so quietly. In fact, in Myanmar, more than 100 kilometers away, a large-scale search and cleansing operation had been launched. A large number of suspects were arrested by the Public Security Brigade, and the resistors were shot dead on the spot. Even the main streets with the busiest traffic were covered with blood. In just one day, everyone in this relatively stable town was in danger. The mercenaries, merchants, and gold diggers who gathered here with different purposes all fell into panic. They had no choice but to panic because this incident was really too big. Once the wrath of the 7th Brigade descended upon them, they would have no ability to resist in any way. Because this was not just an assassination. If necessary, this incident can be defined as a coup. The reason why Chen Chen, who was far away in Mengbin, had not felt this tremendous pressure was purely because he was far away from the scene of the incident and cleared himself of suspicion at the first opportunity. In the Vientiane Hotel, the leaders of the 3 major forces gathered together again, still with a configuration of 4 people. But this time, the position originally belonging to Chen Chen has been replaced by Chen Jiashu. Chen Yimin's expression couldn't be described as very heavy. After all, he had long since learned not to show his emotions through years of fighting. But if someone looked carefully into his eyes, they could still see a hint of sadness that was hard to conceal. That's my biological brother. The two inherited their father's legacy and embarked on a road full of blood and fire, money and power. Although Chen Chen often complained about himself for some reasons, there has never been an unbridgeable gap between the brothers. Chen Yimin never really looked down on his younger brother. He just wanted him to grow more. But now, there is no chance. Chen Yimin exhaled slowly and then said to the other two, I must get to the bottom of Shinha's death. This incident has a huge impact. I will also report it to my superiors and ask for support, coordination, and help from the Military Commission and the Prefectural Committee. In the short term, the situation may be somewhat turbulent. I suggest that you two prepare in advance to deal with possible emergencies. We should pay special attention to this. Because of Fukua's death, the position of the chief officer of the 491st Regiment has been vacated. Some friends will definitely take action, and some enemies will also want to take advantage of the situation. I don't want you two and the groups you represent to be associated with these things. So what I mean is that Mugwe and Chasely should both stop their activities in the short term. If any losses are caused, we, the 7th Brigade, will pay for it. Chen Yimin spoke these words with great restraint, but both Jackal and Peng Shuqing knew that this was not a suggestion, but a request. It is true that the status of the 3 forces can be considered basically equal, and there is no absolute suppression relationship. But in this situation, when Chen Yimin was at his most irrational, it was better to go along with him as much as possible. So, Peng Shuqing spoke first. I completely understand. Brigade Commander Chen, I am sorry for your loss. For the specific follow-up steps, Wanfeng Group will follow the arrangements of the 7th Brigade. Chen Yimin nodded silently and looked at the Jackal again. Chai Sri will also suspend his activities and is willing to assist the 7th Brigade in carrying out the operation. Commander Chen, if there is anything you need me to do, please let me know. We and Chasely will do everything we can for our allies. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Jackal, but there is no need for Chaisley to be involved in the problem resolution process. Chen Yimin paused for a moment and continued. But there is one thing we do need help from professionals like Chaisley. Please go ahead. Jackal sat up straighter. In fact, he had already guessed what Chen Yimin was going to say, or rather, the request he was going to make. We need to find the killer. Chen Yimin's voice was cold, and his eyes were chilling. He had been suppressing his emotions for a whole day, and now they burst out, revealing his true ferocity. What do you need from Chaisley? The Jackal asked calmly. I need you to infer the most likely shooting location of the murderer based on the situation at the scene, find out his retreat route, and then follow the traces he left behind to catch him. At the same time, I need your professionals to provide us with a consultation service. The content of the service is very simple. From the list we provide, find all the gunmen who are capable of firing this shot, so that we can conduct a follow-up investigation. As for the reward, if we can catch him, we will put Chasely on the short list for the subsequent equipment purchase of the 7th Brigade. At the same time, I will personally offer you a reward of $2 million. No problem. Jackal agreed immediately, and after confirmation, Chen Yimin immediately took out the preliminary on-site investigation report that he had prepared. His efficiency was so high that it was not affected even during this time of great sorrow. It took the Jackal 20 minutes to finish reading the report. Then he let out a long sigh and said, a very professional and perfect long-distance sniping. I mean, it was perfect from a technical point of view. Only one shot was fired, and it killed him. Based on the bullet's angle of impact, the blood spray, and the distribution of obstacles around the scene, this was most likely a sniper attack from high to low, and the sniper's position should be on the hillside on the other side of the Mekong River. It's probably right here, 500 to 600 meters away, which is the perfect position for sniping and evacuation. Have you searched? Did you find anything? We have. Chen Yimin nodded slightly and continued. However, we didn't find anything useful. It seemed that no one had ever been there, and no traces were left behind. Maybe you just didn't observe carefully enough. It's possible. Hearing Chen Yimin's answer, Jackal frowned slightly and said, "But your men can't just do such a big thing half-heartedly. If they didn't find it, then the most likely possibility is that the traces left by that person are so few that you can't find them. It's very difficult. If you can't find it, we probably can't either." Chen Chen nodded disappointedly and said nothing. Of course, he also knew how difficult it was to track someone, especially when the other party was deliberately covering it up. Therefore, even if the Jackal directly rejected him, he would not be too disappointed. But just when this thought flashed through his mind, the Jackal's voice sounded again. He said, "But if we can't do it, we can let others do it. I know a team that is good at tracking. They are the perfect team to do it." "Don't think go?" Chen Chen asked. Yes, he should be able to find a way to find a sunken ship. No. Chen Chen shook his head and took out a thin list with words scribbled on it. "They are on the suspect list." "It's okay." The Jackal waved his hand and continued. They had neither the motive nor the time to commit the crime, so it was impossible for them to do so. As for the list, if I'm not mistaken, I'm also on the list. Then here comes the problem. "Commander Chen, if you dare to use me, why don't you dare to use the sunken ship?" Half an hour later, Chen Chen received a call from Jackal. After listening to the other party's story, he was completely stunned. "What? Asked me to find the murderer? Holy shit, I caught myself? Are you kidding me?"